Chapter 4864. The black shadow carried a majestic hurricane. It blew the girl's hair into a mess. Fairy's sister. The little girl stretched out her arms and hugged Yiqing Luo tightly, her voice trembling. Xiao Tuanzi looked at Hong Mei and the black-robed man not far away. Her little body was shivering. Yiqing Luo caressed her head and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Her charming eyes were sharp as she held her tightly in her arms. "Cici, hold me tight." Feng Shi's little hands immediately hugged Yiqing Luo tightly. At the same time, the black-robed man's hand stretched out towards her. That hand was like an eagle's claw. Under the illumination of the dazzling, profound light, his sharp nails flickered with a cold glint. Yiqing Luo's fingers suddenly lifted up. The feather fan rolled wildly, and the wind blade was like a hot knife through butter. It blocked the black-robed man's attack. Then her fingertips moved. The rolling wave turned into a sharp blade and cut towards the black-robed man's wrist. At this moment, she felt a chill on her cheek. Then, the person in his arms seemed to be violently pulled by something. A powerful force grabbed Feng Shi and lifted her up abruptly. Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly changed. The enemy's target was Feng Shi. Yiqing Luo reacted and wanted to hug Feng Shi back. But when she retracted, the profound light. The black-robed man's attack was getting closer. At the moment when the attack was pressed down, Yiqing Luo was shocked and took half a step back. The force in her arms was lightened. Feng Shi was swept away by a horrifying air wave. Feng Shi. Yiqing Luo suddenly split a path and rushed towards the black-robed man. "Forget it, it seems. I can't kill you today. Then, I'll kill you another day." The black-robed man's expression didn't change. "You have to keep your life and let me finish you." As the black-robed man finished his words, Yiqing Luo had already rushed in front of the black-robed man. She waved her feather fan and stabbed it forward. The figure in front of her suddenly dissipated in the air like a wisp of green smoke. It was as if everything that had happened just now was just an illusion. Dark palace. Yiqing Luo's eyes were like frozen snow. Her slender fingers suddenly clenched into a fist. It was as if it wanted to crush something. His entire body exuded a sharp, murderous aura. The black-robed man's target was Feng Shi. From the very beginning, his target had been Feng Shi. She had thought the Palace of Obscure Darkness only intended to use Feng Shi to lure her out. Why would the Palace of Darkness try to take advantage of Feng Shi? Why on earth had the people of Tenyu Palace kidnapped Feng Shi? "Little Luo." The voice of Patriarch Feng came. He was followed by a large group of nobles. Feng family master walked forward quickly. "Where is Cici? Have you found Cici?" Yiqing Luo was just about to open her mouth. Someone nearby exclaimed, "Isn't that Miss Jiang? Jiang Hongmei? How did she get beaten up like this? Didn't Miss Feng say that young Master Feng was taken away by Miss Jiang? Now that Miss Jiang is here, she can definitely find young Master Xiao. Hongmei." The Jiang couple immediately went forward and hugged the battered Hongmei. "Where on earth did you go to? How did you get yourself into this state? And did you take young Master Feng away?" A barrage of questions, but there wasn't a single word of concern. Jiang Hongmei's heart was stabbed fiercely, especially when she saw Patriarch Feng holding Yiqing Luo's hand, full of worry and concern. Chapter 4865. The Needle in Her Heart. Then he stabbed her in the heart. Jiang Hongmei opened her mouth in pain and blood gushed out. Her eyes were a little scarlet as she laid on the ground, saying word by word, "It's me." Jiang Hongmei closed her eyes hard. "It's me, it's all me, slap." Patriarch Jiang slapped Jiang Hongmei's face. Jiang Hongmei fell onto the ground. She curled up in pain. However, the corners of his mouth were curled up in a smile. The farce over there. Yiqing Luo didn't care. She didn't look at the Jiang couple who deliberately wanted to draw a clear line between Hongmei and the family in front of the Feng family. Feng family patriarch didn't have such thoughts. "Little Luo, so you saw Feng Shi just now?" Had Feng she really been kidnapped by Jiang Hongmei? Could Cece be kidnapped? The old man's face was full of anxiety. The joy he had when he saw Yiqing Luo had subsided. Yiqing Luo nodded. She took her away. I did see Cece just now. She lowered her eyes as her long and thick eyelashes fluttered gently. Her eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. I'm sorry, grandfather, I couldn't protect Cece in front of her eyes. Kidnapped Feng, and she couldn't do anything about it. She didn't even know the whereabouts of the other party. The last trace of hope on the old man's face had completely collapsed. He looked at Yiqing Luo with a dull look. Cece, he was taken away. Yiqing Luo clenched her slender fingers. I don't know. Why did they kidnap Cece? Who kidnapped Cece? Did you see clearly? Feng family patriarch asked anxiously. Yiqing Luo's mouth moved. She raised her eyes to see countless noble guests surrounding her. She swallowed back the words and answered silently. Black-robed man. Couldn't see his face clearly. He was very tall, and his voice was very cold. The crowd was in an uproar. This range was too wide. Even if every household was searched, that would take 10 days to half a month. Feng she couldn't wait that long. Yiqing Luo patted Feng family patriarch's hand. Then, he looked in Hong Mei's direction. Her eyes were so cold that they seemed to be quenched in ice. Hong Mei colluded with outsiders to kidnap my Feng family's young master. Her eyes were sharp, and her voice was gloomy. Imprison him in the Feng family's dungeon. If anything happens to Cece, the Jiang clan will be buried with her. The girl's voice was like a raging flame. Under the enchanting black light, it was filled with dense, killing intent. The Jiang couple did not dare to plead for leniency. Watching Hong Mei being taken away by the Feng family's guards on both sides, she could only watch helplessly. The Jiang couple still wanted to plead for leniency. But something happened to Feng Shi. As a result, Feng clan master didn't have the energy to pay attention to the Jiang couple's plea. It was a reunion banquet. He was originally very happy. But before the previous wave subsided, another wave arose. In the study of another courtyard. Little Luo, what did you want to say just now? Do you know who kidnapped Cece? Feng family master asked eagerly. Earlier when Yiqing Luo was answering him, there was an obvious pause. He seemed to have something to say, but in the end, it was because there were too many people. He changed the topic. So, after the banquet ended, Feng family patriarch brought Yiqing Luo to the study. Yiqing Luo nodded. I know who it is, but... Her vision swept past Feng Zhangqing and Ji Wuhua who were sitting aside. I'm discussing business with grandfather. What are you two doing here? Chapter 4866. To help you save Cece, of course. Ji Wuhua clenched his fists. Don't worry. I'll definitely help you bring Feng Shi back. He clenched his fist and said excitedly, This is my first time helping my goddess. Feng Zhangqing said, Young master is the son of the acting divine emperor. Yiqing Luo. His gaze shifted and landed on the red-clothed man in the corner, who was holding a teacup and drinking tea leisurely. Her shimmering eyes narrowed slightly. It's one thing for the two of them to be here, but why are you here as well? Sitting in the corner, he was expressionless, a solemn and cold person. Who else could it be but Zhu Wuxin? Zhu Wuxin calmly raised his eyes, his burning gaze focused on her eyes. I'm worried about you. Yiqing Luo's brows furrowed slightly. I don't have the time to correct the fact that we have nothing to do with each other. You don't need to bother about my matters. After that, she paused for a moment before her pink lips curled into a cold smile. You should have guessed that Cece was beaten up by some power. Yes. Zhu Wuxin's answer was straightforward and decisive. Yiqing Luo laughed. So what are you doing here? You want to be a spy? Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian stared at the young lady's familiar yet foreign face. The face was not the face in his memory. But Yiqing Luo's aura could not be concealed. He stared intensely at Yiqing Luo, as though he wanted to carve Yiqing Luo deep into his heart. I told you, I won't do anything to hurt you. He paused and added, I care about you. Yiqing Luo still wanted to say something. Feng Clan Master had anxiously interrupted the two people's words. What force are you talking about? Who are these people that dare to kidnap Cece? Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze from Zhu Wu Xian as she replied, Dark, serene, palace. Feng Clan Master was taken aback. The name of this force. Yiqing Luo had mentioned it before. However, he had never heard of such a power in the god world. Previously, after Yiqing Luo mentioned it. Thus, he sent people to investigate this faction. But there was not a single clue. I originally thought that this secluded darkness palace was targeting me. Yiqing Luo lowered her head. It's not your fault. Feng family master's eyes were burning with anger and majesty. That Umbra Palace is obviously targeting our Feng family. What kind of inferior force dares to touch our Feng family repeatedly? Do you really think that you won't fail if you hide well? Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk. Ever since I was in the lower realm, the palace of secluded darkness has been entangled with me all the way, I think. They already knew my identity. Her voice paused slightly. Her slender fingers were tightly knitted together. There was a trace of coldness in his eyes. The purpose of the palace of tenebrous shadows. She glanced at Feng Zhangqi. I wasn't clear about it before, but now. I'm guessing that the palace of tenebrous shadows is after the treasure of the Feng clan. The so-called treasures of the Feng family. The legend was almost mystical. It was as if obtaining the treasures of the Feng family would allow one to rule the world. Even Feng Liqiong, a member of the Feng family, couldn't help but want it. Not to mention the others. The Palace of Darkness schemed and schemed. His every move was as fierce as a tiger. He even tried to control her. If all her guesses were true, that meant that the people of the Palace of Darkness were extremely clear about the matters of the Emperor of God thousands of years ago. So they would have the same feeling as Feng Liqiong, the so-called treasure of the Feng family. On her, Feng Ji's daughter. Chapter 4867. So here comes the problem. Why the people of Tinyu Palace kidnapped Feng Shi? Could it be that he couldn't find a breakthrough from her? Do you want to start with Feng Shi? In other words, they already had a clue about the Feng family's treasure, and this clue was related to Feng Shi. What dark shadow palace? What kind of force is that? An impatient voice came from outside the door. Feng Liqiong strode in with large strides, bringing with her a cold, killing intent. Which noble family does the House of Gloom belong to? It was obvious that Feng Liqiong had rushed over after hearing that she had been kidnapped. His forehead was still dripping with sweat. Yiqing Luo looked at Feng Liqiong's solemn and cold expression. Her eyes were filled with obvious worry and impatience. From the looks of it, it didn't seem like what Grandpa had said. He didn't seem to care about Feng Shi at all. After all, this was his biological son. I've looked into it. There is no force called Palace of Gloomy Darkness in the divinity. Master Feng's face was dark. They must be refugees who have not registered with the Divine Emperor Mansion. People from the God world. His identity and status would be registered at the Divine Emperor Palace. This was also to prevent other profound practitioners from bringing living beings from the lower realms or other realms to the God world and mixing up the noble bloodline of the God world. Those who didn't go through the registration process were called refugees. Generally speaking, the refugees of the divine world would all be expelled from the divine world. Just like when Yiqing Luo came to the God realm. It was hidden in the 100-flower garden. It was also to avoid those from the God realm from treating Yiqing Luo as a refugee. Patriarch Feng wanted to hold a reunion banquet for Yiqing Luo. He also wanted to include Yiqing Luo in the Feng family's registration. It didn't matter whether Yiqing Luo's power had met the requirements of the God realm, because she was the adopted daughter of the acting God Emperor. She was now a legal citizen of the God realm. However, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was actually filled with refugees. This was something that Yiqing Luo had not expected. She had always thought that the people behind the Nether Palace were from the God realm. Furthermore, he had been hiding in the God realm for a very long time. Now tell her. The other party had appeared in the God realm, but he was not from there. Then, where did the Palace of Darkness and the person behind the scenes come from? Yiqing Luo was deep in thought. Feng Liqiong slammed the table. Refugees? What kind of refugees were they to actually form a force in the god world? Why are you targeting our Feng family? His vision suddenly congealed towards Yiqing Luo. The depths of her eyes carried a trace of frosty coldness. You just said that the other party was also after the Feng family's treasures. For now, this is my recommendation. Yiqing Luo nodded. From the Nirvana realm to the current God realm, you have perseverance. If this is a man chasing after a beauty, the beauty will definitely be so moved that she will devote her life to him. Ji Wuhua clicked his tongue and sighed with emotion. I won't. All of a sudden, a cold voice was heard. Everyone turned to the source of the voice. The man in the red robe at the corner put down the cup in his hand and looked at Yiqing Luo expressionlessly. I followed you from the Nirvana realm to the God realm, but you weren't moved by me. He paused for a moment. He then looked at Ji Wuhua. So, your conclusion is wrong. Ji Wuhua. Everyone. Yiqing Luo. Why was it back to her again? The person behind the Palace of Gloomy Darkness is indeed from the God realm. Zhu Wuxin met Yiqing Luo's gaze and said calmly, the God Emperor Manor has no record of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. But that doesn't mean that the person behind the Palace of Gloomy Darkness is a refugee. Chapter 4868. I followed you from Nirvana realm to God realm, but you weren't moved by me. His words paused slightly. He looked at Ji Wuhua again, so your conclusion is wrong. Ji Wuhua. Everyone. Yiqing Luo. Why was it back to her again? The mastermind behind the Gloomy Palace is indeed from God realm. Zhu Wuxin met Yiqing Luo's gaze and said calmly, God Emperor Manor has no record of the Gloomy Palace, but that doesn't mean that the mastermind is a refugee. Zhu Wuxian's words made the few of them look towards him. The red-robed, ink-haired man's expression was calm and cold. Only when he looked at Yiqing Luo, his eyes were filled with burning emotions, so intense that it made Feng family's patriarch avert his gaze unnaturally. Yiqing Luo didn't respond to Zhu Wuxian's gaze. She only glanced at him faintly and looked towards Feng family's patriarch. What he said isn't without reason. After all, Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master was once a partner of the Gloomy Palace. There's a possibility that he even knows who the mastermind behind the Gloomy Palace is. Partner, Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master had once worked with the Gloomy Palace. What kind of powerhouse is the other party, even the Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master, would work with them? Feng family's patriarch and Feng Liqiong's expressions changed slightly as they looked at Zhu Wuxian with a questioning gaze. Zhu Wuxian frowned slightly, as though he was unhappy with their gazes. But his expression didn't change at all as he replied calmly, I have long cut off all relations with the Gloomy Palace. His gaze was like a torch as he stared at Yiqing Luo. I said before, I will absolutely not do anything that will hurt you. It was a sincere and intense confession, which made Feng family's patriarch and Feng Liqiong feel awkward. The atmosphere became extremely strange. They only wanted to find out what kind of powerhouse the Gloomy Palace was. But Zhu Wuxian seemed as though he couldn't see their existence. He had completely ignored them, just as Feng Liqiong couldn't suppress the impatience in her heart and was about to explode. Zhu Wuxian expressionlessly looked towards their direction. His clear black eyes were filled with coldness. He calmly looked at the two of them and replied, We've worked together before, but we've never seen each other's faces or fought against each other. He paused for a moment before continuing, The other party is very strong. That cold and indifferent attitude, and that concise and comprehensive explanation. Evidently, Zhu Wuxin really didn't want to bother with them. It was only on account that they were Yiqing Luo's relatives. He answered them reluctantly. However, to be able to make the pavilion master of the Red Clear Pavilion say the word very strong, the other party was truly powerful. Feng Liqiong waved her sleeve. A ghostly voice came from the darkness. He then knelt respectfully in front of Feng Liqiang. Go, investigate the situation of the nobles and the stronger, profound practitioners as soon as possible. Feng Liqiang ordered. Yes. The Shadow Guard accepted the order. Regarding the investigation of the Palace of Darkness, he could only wait for the results of the investigation. Only then would he know where Feng Shi had been taken. Feng Liqiang left in a hurry. Yiqing Luo comforted Patriarch Feng with a few words and asked Granny Feng to support him back to the room to rest. She then got up and left the main hall. Zhu Wu Xian followed closely behind as he walked forward. Hey, why are you following my goddess for? My goddess is mine. Ji Wuhua instantly stood up and chased after him. Chapter 48-69. No, it doesn't look like it. Ji Wuhua shook his head. Feng Zhangqing pressed her down on her seat. Since Miss Qing Luo will not be bullied, why do you need to go over? Of course Ji Wuhua wouldn't say that it was because he wanted to eavesdrop on them, to find out what was the relationship between that Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master and Miss Qing Luo. His mind spun quickly as he changed the topic and stared at Feng Zhangqing. You're now the appointed young Miss Qing Luo's fiancé. Aren't you worried that young Miss Qing Luo will be snatched away by Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master? He touched his face and sighed. I originally thought that there wouldn't be a second man in the world who could be more handsome than me. Now, the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion's pavilion master doesn't want to admit it, but he has no choice but to admit that he's better looking than me. Ji Wuhua mournfully covered his own face once again. He's even better looking than me. What if Miss Qing Luo falls in love with him? What should I do? What should you do? Feng Zhangqing looked at the drama queen Ji Wuhua as his gentle brows revealed a sliver of helplessness. Since Miss Qing Luo didn't like the Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion master right from the start, then she wouldn't accept him in the future. As for me, I'm just following the arrangements of the acting god emperor. But Miss Qing Luo will not agree to this marriage, so I'm not considered as Miss Qing Luo's fiancé. Miss Qing Luo is so pretty and has such a personality. Do you really not have any feelings for her? Ji Wuhua's face was filled with suspicion. Feng Zhangqing shook his head and said, the one I love is not her. Ji Wuhua's eyes suddenly lit up. You actually have someone you like? Then who do you like? Could she be even more beautiful than Miss Qing Luo? No. Feng Zhangqing continued to shake his head, but he didn't say a word about the person he liked. Ji Wuhua stared at Feng Zhangqing for a long time. Suddenly, he crossed his arms in front of his chest, his face full of shame and indignation. You, the person you like, could it be me? Feng Zhangqing. Scram. He walked out of the hall. Yiqing Luo then walked towards the room that her grandfather had arranged for her in the courtyard. Grandfather had already been worried sick about the reunion banquet. Then, Feng Shi's abduction. Grandpa was under too much pressure. Yiqing Luo felt that although it wasn't far from here to the Feng residence, but based on her grandfather's current condition, it was better to rest nearby. Hence, Yiqing Luo suggested to stay in the other courtyard for a night. She even gave Granny Feng some aromatherapy to calm her grandfather's nerves so that he could sleep more comfortably. He took a few steps. Yiqing Luo suddenly stopped in her tracks as she turned her head around and looked at the man behind her with an unpleasant expression. Why are you following me for? The red-clothed, black-haired man was expressionless, a pair of eyes that were as calm as an ancient well, like an emotionless crystal, sparkling and translucent, beautiful, beautiful. However, it did not have the slightest luster of a soul. He gazed deeply into her face. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath. When we were in the lower realm, wasn't what I said clear enough? Very clear. Zhu Wuxin said calmly. You said that it is your right, but whether or not I continue to like you is my right. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Yiqing Luo, you've been in the god realm for such a long time. That man has not come looking for you? Yiqing Luo's face turned cold. This has nothing to do with Master Zhu, right? Yes. Zhu Wuxin's voice was a little chilly when he spoke words of love. Everything about you is related to me. Chapter 4870. Yi Qing Luo. She pursed her pink lips, not wanting to waste her breath talking to him about give up on her, don't pester her, etc., etc. Anyway, Zhu Wu Xian's paranoia was already beyond cure. He wouldn't listen. She might as well ask directly, "Why did you come to God Realm?" "Because of you." Zhu Wu Xian gazed deeply at her. "I know you came to God Realm, so I came." Not waiting for Yi Qing Luo to say a word, he continued, "I knew you came to God Realm, so I specially followed you here." But DMO Shin didn't. His lips seemed to curl up slightly. It made that cold face reveal a gentleness which didn't match his character. This is enough to prove that to him. You're not the most important. He put on a very happy look. Yi Qing Luo, only I really like you. Saying that, Zhu Wu Xian took a step closer to her. He stretched out his hand towards her, as though he wanted to hold her wrist. Yi Qing Luo immediately took a step back as her eyes sunk slightly. "Zhu Wu Xian, I don't want to talk nonsense with you." Zhu Wu Xian's body stiffened as though he had suffered a blow as his arm drooped down bit by bit. His eyes were as deep as water as he stared deeply at Yi Qing Luo. Looking at him, indeed, made one's heart ache. "Nonsense? To you, my feelings towards you are just nonsense?" Zhu Wu Xian scoffed lightly as his eyes turned frosty. Yi Qing Luo's expression was calm, as she didn't have any intention of being moved as she spoke calmly. "Zhu Wu Xian, I respect every single feeling and respect your obsession towards me. But this obsession of yours has obviously troubled me." Her eyes were very faint, as her long and narrow eyes were without any ripples. "Since you don't respect my answer to you, then I don't need to respect your obsession." Zhu Wu Xian's pupils seemed to be surging with waves. One wave after another surged wildly. In the end, there was no sound. Yi Qing Luo's fingertips gently brushed past the hair on her forehead as her peerless brows were indifferent. "I'm very grateful for your worry and concern towards me, but I don't need it." Her gaze was cold as she calmly met Zhu Wu Xian's serene and lifeless eyes. "If you came to God Realm because of me, then now you can leave." Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wuxin's tone was slightly angry. His cold and emotionless face was dark and gloomy. "I knew long ago that you weren't her." That she was naturally referring to the Xiaoqing Luo who once gave little Chu heartless warmth. Yi Qing Luo didn't have any other expression, only looking at him quietly. "Don't you want to know why I'm working with the Palace of Darkness?" Zhu Wuxin let out a low chuckle. His thick and long eyelashes drooped slightly, covering his eyes that were filled with coldness and pain. "Because the Palace of Gloomy Shadows promised me that they would help me summon back the soul that originally belonged to her, and let her, who has me in her heart, return to my side." Zhu Wu Xian's words made Yi Qing Luo's pupils shrink slightly. Zhu Wuxin's expression did not seem to be lying. That also meant, actually, the people of the Gloomy Palace already knew her true identity. Did he know that there was another soul in her body? Even this kind of thing, does the Palace of Gloomy Darkness know about it? As for the Dark Abyss Palace, how did she know about something that only she and Xian knew? Initially, I really hoped that she could come back. Zhu Wu Xian's deep and low voice entered her ears once again. He sneered as his tone was filled with ridicule. But later on, I dispelled this idea. Chapter 4871. Zhu Wu Xian raised his eyes. His gaze was burning, as deep as a cold lake, as he stared at her without blinking. "I hope the person who remains in this body is you." The man's voice was icy cold. She couldn't tell whether he was happy or angry, but it still made Yi Qing Luo's heart jolt. "You said, I like you because of my obsession." Zhu Wu Xian's thin lips curled slightly. His cold face revealed a faint smile. "Then now, do you feel it's still obsession?" Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. Still, she was unable to answer. If she said it was because of obsession, but he had long known that this body of hers had already changed a core and was no longer the little Qing Luo who gave him warmth in the past. and had been pursuing till now. This really could no longer be considered as obsession toward the past. What he meant was, the person he liked was the current her, and not the past her. Zhu Wuxian's smile didn't diminish. Instead, it became even more intense. Yes, I like you. Yiqing Luo was stunned once again. After some time, she regained her senses as her eyes congealed slightly. Zhu Wuxian. Her voice was very soft. She was obviously close at hand, but there was an inexplicable feeling. Zhu Wuxian inexplicably didn't want to listen to the young lady's later words. But the young lady's voice was heard immediately. No matter if your obsession is it the past her or me between us, it's impossible. His eyes were like a bottomless abyss, dark and silent. Yiqing Luo continued. Moreover, no matter if it's your pleasure or your obsession, it can't conceal the fact that you once made use of my trust towards you and destroyed the trust one have towards you. Zhu Wuxian, I won't believe you. She turned around as she headed toward her own room. Go back. Don't look for me anymore. Her resolute back view, without any reluctance. Cold, aloof, arrogant, unattainable. Zhu Wuxian's hands, which were hanging by his side, tightened. The storm which gathered in his eyes seemed as though it was going to swallow him into the darkness, until the young lady took a few steps away. His thin lips moved slightly as he spoke out coldly. I know. Where's the nearest base of secluded darkness palace in God Realm? The slender figure in front of him suddenly stopped. Night. The moonlight was cold and gloomy. It was as if all the light had been covered. Under the night sky, the two figures were like ghosts. Until it stopped outside one of the 5 great aristocratic families, the Jiang aristocratic family. Jiang Mansion? Yiqing Luo looked up at the plaque in front of her and frowned slightly. This has something to do with the Jiang family's aristocrats? Under the dim moonlight, the red-clothed, black-haired man stood quietly in the darkness like a lonely elf. He looked at the side of the girl's face and said faintly, it can be considered related. Sort of? Yiqing Luo's brows creased even tighter. I'll listen to you and bear with it till nighttime before I start to take action. I only want to bring Cece home now. I don't have the patience to play the game of you guess I guess with you. Either say it or shut up. Zhu Wuxian did not speak again. Instead, he turned around and leaped into the Jiang manor. Yiqing Luo suppressed the anxiety in her stomach and followed suit. Soon, the two of them quietly approached each other in the most remote and dark place of the Jiang Mansion's dungeon. The dungeon was really built underground. The abandoned courtyard was the entrance. Weeds were overgrown, and it looked extremely desolate. But just as they stepped into the abandoned courtyard, Yiqing Luo sensed an extremely cold aura lingering in the courtyard. Chapter 4872. It was a very sinister aura. The people of Gloomy Palace really know how to hide. Yiqing Luo sneered as her lips curled upwards. The cold, enchanting arc made the pair of long, narrow, and charming eyes exude a bit of coldness in the dark and gloomy abandoned courtyard. Who could have imagined it? The base of the palace of gloomy darkness. Would it be hidden in the dungeon of the Jiang family? This was indeed a place so safe that no one would be able to guess where it was. Yiqing Luo's gaze turned slightly as she congealed towards Zhu Wuxian. Are you sure? The girl's tone was not cold, but there was doubt in it. This caused Zhu Wuxian's heart to violently thump. His eyes dimmed and his voice was hoarse. I won't hurt you. Yiqing Luo smiled but didn't give any response. Zhu Wuxian pursed his lips, and a trace of pain and sorrow flashed in his eyes. He clenched his fingers into a fist and suppressed the pain in his chest. He said, let's go. One word came out of his mouth. He had already taken a lead and stepped into the cool entrance of the dungeon. The black-haired man in red blended into the night. It was as if he belonged to the darkness. Looking at Zhu Wuxian's back, Yiqing Luo's pink lips moved slightly. He wanted to say something, but the words that were about to come out of his mouth stopped. In the end, he didn't say anything and followed Zhu Wuxian. The path to the dungeon was long and dark. It was so quiet that only the sound of their clothes rubbing against each other could be heard. Yiqing Luo had been releasing her perception to the maximum as she vigilantly sensed the surrounding situation. After walking for the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Yiqing Luo's ears faintly heard a few voices. She stopped in her tracks. In the next instant, her wrist was grabbed by the man. The cold touch made Yiqing Luo want to shake it off. However, the man was very strong. Pulling her along, he turned abruptly in another direction. It was a fork in the road. That was the moment he turned into the intersection. Flames could be seen ahead. It was clearly swaying, and it was accompanied by a few people's complaints. "Boss, why did you bring that brat here? So hard to please. I really want to hack him to death." Boss said that none of us are allowed to touch that brat. It seems like the higher-ups need that brat. It's because of Boss's order that that brat is so lawless and out of control. He's sure that we won't dare to do anything to him. All right, let's go out and buy some candy haws. When Boss comes back, let's see how that brat dies. The few of them were cursing and swearing as they walked past Yiqing Luo and Chu Wu Xian. No one noticed the two of them. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. She narrowed her eyes. Those people should be disciples of the Dark Nether Palace. From their conversation, Yiqing Luo was certain. The brat they were talking about should be Feng Shi. As for the boss, it was the black-robed man that they had met before. Looks like Feng Shi was safe for the time being. He could even torture these dark, secluded palace disciples to such a state. Worthy of being the child of the Feng family. Yiqing Luo's heart was finally at ease. The group of people walked out of the dungeon. Yiqing Luo swung Zhu Wu Xian's hand away. "Can you let go now?" The big hand that held her wrist. His 5 fingers slightly increased the strength. After a moment of silence, he then released his hand. "Let's go." Yiqing Luo's gaze looked towards the direction of the intersection. This dungeon. Why are there 2 paths? That side, what does it lead to? Zhu Wu Xian took a look at the endless darkness ahead. He didn't answer Yiqing Luo's question. He only indifferently looked towards the direction where those dark, secluded palace disciples had walked past. "Feng Shi, it's this way." Chapter 48-73. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as she fixed her gaze on that path as she took a look. Following that, she turned back and walked towards Feng Shi's path. "Let's go." The two of them walked forward silently. This time round, they didn't meet any other secluded palace's disciples. After walking for a while, Yiqing Luo could obviously feel the overflowing evil qi in front of her. Zhu Wu Xian stretched out his hand to grab her arm, but Yiqing Luo avoided it. She took a step forward and leaned sideways against the uneven wall as she hid herself in the darkness. Zhu Wu Xian's hand grabbed onto empty air. He lowered his eyes, and in the darkness, he gazed at his frozen hand in midair. Slightly stunned for a moment, he slowly retracted his hand. Immediately after, he turned sideways and hid into the darkness. They walked forward for a distance. Yiqing Luo could see very clearly in front of her a huge iron door horizontally in front. There were a few tall and sturdy secluded palace's disciples dressed in black robes as they leaned on the side and chatted idly. There was a bright light swaying in the wind. It made the reflection of the steel door extremely long. If they wanted to enter from here, they definitely had to defeat these secluded palace's disciples first. But the moment they took action, it would definitely attract the attention of secluded palace. That would be a huge risk to Feng Shi's safety. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers caressed the profound phoenix ring as she squinted her eyes slightly. "Looks like I can only use poison." Just as she took out a bottle of poison powder, she was prepared to blend into the air silently and make those secluded palace's disciples who were guarding the door faint. All of a sudden, a crisp, young voice rang out from behind him. "I heard that elder Su has kidnapped a little brat. Where is he?" That voice was not far away, just at the corner in front. Yiqing Luo's body suddenly stiffened. She turned her head to look at that intersection at the lights which appeared. There were at least 5 to 6 people's footsteps. Her complexion turned slightly pale. At this moment, she was in a dilemma. If the person behind her took another few steps forward, they would definitely discover her and Zhu Wuxian. If they moved forward, those secluded palace's disciples who were guarding outside the steel door would discover them. Don't move. Zhu Wuxian's low and hoarse voice rang in his ears. Then, his hand grasped her wrist through the sleeve of her robe. Yiqing Luo's body lightened. His feet were suspended in the air. He had already been brought into the sky. This movement was very big. However, Zhu Wuxian controlled it very well, not making any sound at all. In addition, the crisp and tender voice on the other side was still chattering nonstop. It also covered the slight sound of Yiqing Luo's sleeves fluttering in the wind. Perhaps he knew that she did not like his touch. Zhu Wuxian only used the strength of one hand to hook her body and maintain her balance. They weren't close at all. His other hand was tightly gripping the protruding part of the rock wall. Fortunately, the cave was very high up. The two of them leaped into the air and hung on the cliff. The people below did not notice their presence. Soon, 6 attendants escorted a person over. The 2 attendants in front carried lanterns. The bright light illuminated the people in the middle clearly. That was a young lady who was around 11 or 12 years old and looked extremely adorable, dressed in a pink long dress, holding 2 skewers of candied haws in her hands. One look, and one could tell that she was a pampered little princess. When a row of people walked to the steel door, the few people guarding the door immediately straightened their bodies and bowed respectfully towards the young lady. Princess Ling Long. Young Lady Ling Long waved her hand. Elder Su caught a little brat. I want to meet that little brat. Chapter 4874. The secluded palace's disciple looked at each other in dismay as he replied hesitantly. Elder Su had ordered that no one is allowed to go near that little brat. Princess Linglong's expression sunk instantly. What you mean is, even I can't do it. Princess Linglong. The secluded palace's disciple's face turned green. Please don't make things difficult for me. Linglong's face was cold as she threw the candied haws in her hands towards an attendant by the side. She hurried past the few attendants and walked towards the secluded palace's disciple. I want to make things difficult for you. What can you do? Linglong placed her hands on her waist in an extremely pampered manner as she raised her chin and walked towards the secluded palace's disciple. Her face was filled with delight. She was relying on the fact that they didn't dare to touch her. And without any scruples, the secluded palace's disciple instantly retreated in a fluster. Princess Linglong, we are only listening to Elder Su's orders. You also know Elder Su's temper. If I ask you to look for that little brat, and Elder Su finds out, Elder Su will not blame you, but Elder Su will definitely kill us. If you don't give way, I will kill you right now. Linglong was apparently a spoiled little princess, so arrogant that she was out of control, totally disregarding those secluded palace's disciples who were guarding the entrance. After she finished her words, she raised her hand. Go. The attendants didn't hesitate at all as they walked towards the direction of the secluded palace's disciples. These attendants, apparently all of them, had their own unique skills. When they released all the profound energy from their bodies, the entire underground cave seemed to be surging with earth-shattering waves. The secluded palace's disciples were so scared that they were shivering. He was angry and indignant at the same time, but most of them were fearful. They didn't dare to make a move against these attendants. The scene was a little chaotic. The longer Yiqing Luo hung in the air. Zhu Wuxian, who was carrying her with one hand, gradually increased his strength. The little princess below apparently didn't intend to use the fastest speed to barge into the secluded palace's underground prison. If this went on, Zhu Wuxian would probably not be able to hold on. Furthermore, this posture of hanging in the air, it was really unbearable. He had to think of something. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as her gaze suddenly fell onto the two attendants standing behind Princess Ling Long, who were protecting the princess's safety. Her eyes suddenly brightened. She raised her hand and poked the back of Zhu Wuxin's hand. Zhu Wuxian was slightly stunned as he turned his head towards Yiqing Luo in shock, as though he was extremely astonished that Yiqing Luo took the initiative to look for him. He was astonished to the point. Zhu Wuxin was so excited that he didn't have enough strength. The two of them almost fell down. Yiqing Luo indicated for him to look down. Zhu Wuxin stared at the two attendants with some surprise in his eyes. It seemed to be asking, "You want to do that?" Yiqing Luo nodded. Zhu Wuxin had no intention of stopping him. He nodded at her. The two of them looked at each other. His figure suddenly moved. While the attendants and the disciples of the Palace of Darkness were engaged in a chaotic battle, he quietly landed in a tunnel not far away. Then, he quietly crept over. Yiqing Luo also didn't know why when Zhu Wuxian sneaked over silently. Those people, none of them noticed his existence or the fluctuations in his aura. But Yiqing Luo knew herself. It was because of this jade pendant which Feng Liqiong gave her, as well as herself, the execution of the blink movement secret art. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at the man beside her as her eyes squinted slightly, concealing the deep meaning in her eyes. She didn't dare to say, nor did she dare to ask. Chapter 4875. Their movements were almost like clones. He approached the two attendants at the same time. The two of them stretched out their hands at the same time and sprinkled the poison powder on the servant. Then he steadily caught the unconscious attendant and quickly dragged him away. The movements of the two people, light, slow, and fast. He didn't even catch the attention of Ling Long, who had her hands on her hips and was looking at the Palace of Darkness disciple fighting with her attendant. The two of them quickly tore off the servant's coat and covered themselves with it. The people of secluded Darkness Palace all had one thing in common. He was dressed in a long black robe that covered his head. Only the embroidery on the black robe and the unique totem symbol proved his official position and status in the Palace of Darkness. The two of them put on their outer robes. Coincidentally, his entire body was hidden in the black robe. No one could see their faces. No one would recognize them. Zhu Wuxian went to deal with the two fainted attendants. Yiqing Luo picked up the candied haws on the ground and walked towards the direction of the little princess. As soon as she stood still, she saw the little princess staring at her with a frown. "Little Seven, where did you go?" The little princess looked displeased. Yiqing Luo adjusted her tone and replied in a low voice, "There's movement over there." "Seven, is this the code name of the owner of this robe? No wonder you and Lil Six suddenly went over there." The little princess pursed her lips and said with a look of disdain, "You guys just like to make a fuss. This is my father's secret base. How could there be any commotion?" "Yes," Yiqing Luo replied. The little princess raised her hand and pointed forward. "Don't be lazy. Hurry up and catch those people and throw them away. There is no place in the Palace of Darkness that I can't go." The disciples of the secluded Darkness Palace were no match for the servants. If it wasn't for the fact that the attendants showed mercy and didn't have the intention to kill them, their corpses would have long been strewn across the Iron Gate. The little princess was about to send more people to beat them up. He decisively let them pass. What a joke. If they didn't let him in again, Elder Su had yet to return. They would really be dead. "Princess Ling Long, I know my mistake. I'll bring you to that brat now." A wise man submits to circumstances. After all, the other party was Princess Ling Long. Even if Elder Su asked, they were only forced by Princess Ling Long's threat and could not do anything about it. Thinking like this, the disciples of secluded Darkness Palace immediately compromised. Then he sent two injured men to lead the way in front of him. Yiqing Luo took a glance at the empty space behind her. Zhu Wuxin had yet to return. He watched as the little princess walked closer to the Iron Gate. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and quickened her pace to follow behind the little princess. The little princess was leading the way. It was truly unimpeded. She took the opportunity to scan her surroundings. He drew a map of the surrounding terrain in his mind. Along the way, he encountered many disciples dressed in black robes. When he saw Princess Linglong, all of them bowed respectfully. Then he saw the limping Scar Guide. They were not surprised or surprised at all. It was as if he was already used to it. It could be seen that Princess Linglong's unruly reputation in the Palace of Darkness was undeniable. Very quickly, the group of people arrived at the house where Little Wimp was imprisoned. In this dark and desolate dungeon, there was an independent space in the house. It was already considered as the best. The room's door was locked tightly. The sound of things crashing and crashing could also be heard from inside, accompanied by the child's crisp howling. "Let me out! Let me out!" Chapter 4876. Yiqing Luo's eyes congealed slightly. It was Feng Shi's voice. Feng Shi was indeed brought to the base of the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo suppressed the worry in her heart and made her presence and everything the same as the other attendants, so quiet as though she didn't exist. Xiao Qi. Suddenly, she heard Linglong's call. Yiqing Luo immediately raised her head and looked at Linglong. "Give it to me." She stretched out her hand. Yiqing Luo went into a blank as she saw her right hand waving towards her and immediately reacted as she passed the candied fruit in her hand to Linglong. "This is the little brat you've caught." Linglong stared at the tightly shut door as she laughed with interest. "Yes." The Palace of Darkness disciple immediately replied. "Open the door," Linglong ordered. There was a disciple guarding the door as an example. The Palace of Darkness disciple who was guarding outside the room naturally didn't dare to delay as he quickly opened the door. Bam! A teapot was thrown towards Linglong. "Princess Linglong." Immediately, the surrounding people cried out in alarm. The teacup had already been smashed. Swoosh. Linglong's wrist was grabbed by someone as she was violently pulled backwards. That teacup was smashed onto the person who was blocking in front of her. Linglong could vaguely smell a very pleasant fragrance. She blinked her eyes as she raised her head. The person who was blocking in front of her let go of her. "Please punish me for offending Princess Linglong." Linglong looked at the shattered teacup on the ground, as well as the person's black robe, which was drenched. There was even a thin layer of mist spreading. Apparently, the teacup which was thrown was filled with boiling hot tea. "No problem." Linglong shook her head. "Xiao Qi, you saved me." Who else could the person who blocked the teacup for her, if it wasn't Yiqing Luo? She was standing the closest. At this juncture, as an attendant, she naturally had to stand up for her master. She still hadn't managed to save Feng Shi. She absolutely couldn't ruin her image. She didn't expect. Linglong's next sentence made Yiqing Luo even more certain that her actions this time round were simply right. "I will make an exception and recommend you to be my personal attendant." She raised her chin arrogantly. Yiqing Luo cupped her fists. "Thank you, Princess Linglong." Linglong looked at the room again and walked towards it. The disciple of secluded Darkness Palace immediately said, "Princess Linglong, the brat inside is too violent. If you go in and hurt your precious daughter, his lordship will feel sorry for you." Linglong thought of the teacups and the sounds of them crashing to the ground. After thinking for a while, he pointed to Yiqing Luo. "Let Xiao Qi accompany me in." This was exactly what Yiqing Luo wanted. Yiqing Luo walked in front. Linglong followed behind. He even specially locked the room. As soon as he entered the room, what greeted him was a flurry of things being thrown at him. Yiqing Luo immediately waved her robe and blocked those things. Linglong poked her little head out from behind her and stared curiously in the direction where the thing had been thrown from. Amidst the ruins, a pink and jade-carved little dumpling was standing there, panting. A pair of black and white clear big eyes stared fiercely at them. Her eyes were instantly filled with a trace of smile. "You're the little brat that Elder Su had kidnapped? You're indeed so small. Let me out." Feng Shi's expression was cold, and her eyes were filled with a chilly intent. The current him. Totally no one could tell that he was so cute in front of Yiqing Luo. He looked exactly like the real. Feng family's eldest grandson should have the attitude. Chapter 4877. Ling Long walked past Yiqing Luo and directly towards Feng Shi. It's not impossible for me to let you out. Feng Shi looked at her warily. What's your motive? He naturally could tell. The identity of this young girl in front of him should be extremely distinguished in this place. Would she let him out? Ling Long walked nearer to Feng Shi and suddenly stretched out her hand. Feng Shi was so shocked that she jumped backwards, out of Ling Long's range of reach. Ling Long's hand touched thin air. Her small, delicate face and big, bright eyes revealed a bit of interest. This unruly princess who called her attendant a slave just because she was slightly resisted. Now that she was rejected, she actually had no intention of getting angry. Instead, she laughed. What's there to be nervous about? Do you think I'll eat you up? She retracted her hand and walked towards the vigilant Feng Shi. Didn't you want to eat candied haws? I specially brought 2 skewers of candied haws for you. Her vision swept towards Yiqing Luo, Shao Qi, passed the candied haws to him. Previously, Yiqing Luo heard a few secluded palaces' disciples going out to buy candied haws for Feng Shi. So, Ling Long brought her attendant over specially to deliver candied haws to Feng Shi. This unruly little princess. Would she be so kind? Yiqing Luo's expression remained unchanged as she walked towards Feng Shi and passed the candied haws in her hand. Feng Shi's cold face was filled with alertness when she saw her approaching, and he even took a few steps back. But at the moment when Yiqing Luo passed the candied haws to him, Feng Shi seemed to have reacted as he raised his head abruptly and stared at Yiqing Luo, who was shrouded in a black robe. He stared at her with his big round eyes, as though he was trying to confirm something. Yiqing Luo looked at Feng Shi with some astonishment. This lad recognized her? She had disguised herself so well. And she was actually recognized? Feng Shi suddenly grabbed her arm with her small hand and moved her face closer, trying to see Su Qingsong's face under the black robe. Yiqing Luo hurriedly raised her hand and pressed on Feng Shi's shoulder. Under the black robe, a pair of long and narrow eyes were revealed as he blinked at Feng Shi. Then, he disappeared into the darkness. Yiqing Luo took 2 steps back and stood firmly behind Ling Long. Feng Shi stood rooted to the spot. Ling Long looked at Feng Shi in confusion. Then, she glanced sideways at the attendant behind her. Shao Qi, what's going on? Your subordinate does not know. A deep and husky voice came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Ling Long's gaze moved back and forth between the 2 of them for a while. Then he fixed his gaze on Feng Shi. Do you like my attendant? The dumbfounded little person turned his head stiffly. Upon hearing Ling Long's words, Zhang Xian frowned. He subconsciously took a glance at Yiqing Luo. However, Feng Shi was the legitimate grandson of the Feng family. Very quickly, he adjusted his train of thought. Fairy Sister must have dressed up like this to save him. With Fairy Sister here, he didn't need to be afraid. Thinking like this, the vigilance on Feng Shi's face faded a little. She pretended not to know Yiqing Luo at all and asked directly, Who are you? What do you want to do? Ling Long didn't ask about Feng Shi's strange behavior when she saw her servant. She heard that the little dumpling was willing to respond to her. She was in a good mood and gave a rare smile. I am Princess Ling Long here. Everyone has to listen to me, including you. The little girl raised her chin, apparently very complacent. Feng Shi looked at her suspiciously. Really? Everyone listens to you? Chapter 4878. Poor person with no friends. Ling Long crossed her arms. Why? Are you doubting me? Feng Shi asked again. Then you said, You can let me out, is that true? Of course. Ling Long was delighted. Who dares to disobey my order? Feng Shi pursed her lips, seemingly considering. After a while, she raised her head. What do you want me to do? Ling Long walked straight over. Feng Shi took a step back, then took a look at where Yiqing Luo was standing. Finally, he stood still and let Ling Long put her hand on his shoulder. Ling Long's smile widened. I don't need you to be a master. I just want you to play with me. Feng Shi Play? Did he hear it wrong? This little princess actually wanted him to play with her? Play what? Play with his life? Linglong looked at the lad's shocked expression and smiled calmly. Yes, this princess wants you to play with this princess. Fengshi stood still. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the small hand on his shoulder. Fair and slender. It looked even smaller than his hand. He swallowed. How do you want me to play with you? Play with me like how you usually play, said Linglong. Fengshi was stunned, her face drooping. I don't have friends. Linglong was stunned too. A look of disappointment appeared on her delicate and pretty little face. You are the same as this princess, a pitiful person without friends. She said the last 4 words very softly, almost inaudible, but it clearly floated into Fengshi's ears. He seemed to understand something. This princess, who looked unruly and extremely confident and flamboyant. She looked beautiful on the surface, but the pain in her heart was no less than ordinary people. As the grandson of the Feng family, Fengshi, he understood Linglong's feelings very well. They were high up and unreachable. They wanted something. As long as they asked, someone would do it for them. But it wasn't them who worked hard for what they wanted. What was the point of such a life? No friends around him? No, there were some. It was just that those so-called friends were only getting close to him because of the warnings of the elders of the family. Actually, those people must hate him. She didn't want to play with him at all. He has no friends. Apart from Grandpa and Granny Phoenix, there was only boundless loneliness left in his life. Presumably, Princess Linglong was probably the same as well. He was only 6 years old. However, his mentality was like that of an old man in his 70s. Fengshi blinked her big eyes and looked at Linglong seriously. If you keep your word, I can be your friend. Linglong's eyes lit up. You're the one who said it. Then we are friends now. Yi Qing Luo. He looked at the 2 children in the room with a dumbfounded expression. They shook hands and looked at each other. Then they played together. Yi Qing Luo, since when did her Cece become such a brat who easily messed around with others? What happened to being autistic? His mind was flooded with messages. Yi Qing Luo didn't show it on her face. Looking at the 2 little ones, they laughed and played around. She slowly walked to the door and stood still, acting as a backdrop. This was also to prevent anyone from coming in, interrupting her Cece's honey trap to cultivate feelings with Linglong. Chapter 48-79. Outside the door, they could faintly hear the voices of the secluded palace's disciples or attendants. Princess Linglong seems to be smiling very happily. That wimpy brat is so hard to please. Why is he not making a fuss now? Why is Princess Linglong looking for that wimpy brat? Why is it so lively inside? This is the first time we've heard Princess Linglong smiling so happily. The secluded palace's disciples were also gossipy. Perhaps it's because Princess Linglong had never seen anyone younger or similar in age to her. An attendant spoke calmly. Princess Linglong heard that Elder Su had kidnapped a child, so she hurried over. That attendant paused slightly before continuing. She heard that the other party wanted to eat candied haws, so she brought her favorite candied haws along. The secluded palace's disciples nodded their heads in realization. That's true. His lordship had never allowed Princess Linglong to interact with the outside world. Princess Linglong, indeed, had never interacted with anyone other than us. No wonder Princess Linglong took the initiative to look for her. Forget it. It's just 2 kids and Shao-Chi is guarding over there, so nothing will happen. Let Princess Linglong play with that wimpy brat for a while. Yi Qing Luo heard those people's discussions outside the door as her slender eyes squinted slightly. Then he shifted his gaze to the smiling Linglong. She sighed. This Linglong should be the daughter of the mastermind behind the secluded palace, and the mastermind behind the secluded palace valued her a lot. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been nurtured into such a character. But keeping her in the secluded palace, not allowing her to come into contact with the outside world, this was like keeping a canary in a cage. Was it really purely because of care? Yi Qing Luo didn't quite understand this care. Look at the current Ling Long. She was so adorable, and her smile was beautiful. Her mannerisms, and speech were all spoiled and willful. Probably because of the circle she came into contact with. Only the secluded palace. And the people in the secluded palace were all respectful towards her. So much so, when Ling Long saw that Feng she was treating her differently from the others, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. Not only would she not be angry, she felt, interesting, let the two of them play for a while. Yiqing Luo looked around unknowingly, scanning the surroundings. He memorized all the furnishings in the room. In his mind, he made a plan to leave. From time to time, people would walk past the door, but no one approached the door. Yiqing Luo had not received any news from Zhu Wu Xin. About an hour later, the two little dumplings that were playing together were also tired. At this moment, they were sitting on the ground with their backs against each other, resting with their eyes closed. It had been a long time since the two of them had such happiness. Just as the peaceful and harmonious atmosphere was spreading intensely, suddenly he heard a low shout. "What are you guys doing here?" Elder Su. The greetings of the Dark Abyss Palace disciples came from outside. Elder Su strode over. "Where's Feng family's tiny tot?" "He's inside." The disciple of Dark Palace answered respectfully. "No, but just stay inside." Elder Su interrupted the disciple and waved his hand. He pushed the door open and walked into the room. Chapter 4880. Elder Su. Yiqing Luo mimicked the greetings from the secluded palace's disciples outside. A black robe covered her entire body, leaving no gap. This Elder Su in front of her. He was the black-robed man who had appeared at the Feng family's courtyard and kidnapped Feng Shi. Elder Su took a glance at Yiqing Luo. "Why are you here?" He didn't wait for Yiqing Luo's reply. He walked straight in. When he saw the two of them sitting back to back, his expression changed. "Princess Ling Long, what are you doing here?" This exclamation, it made the two who were tired of playing open their eyes. When Ling Long saw Elder Su, a sliver of impatience surfaced on her face. "Elder Su, what are you shouting about? This is my territory. Do I need Elder Su's permission to go wherever I want?" Elder Su's expression froze. "Princess Ling Long, I'm just concerned about you." "I'm fine. I don't need your concern." Ling Long gave him a disdainful glance. Then she stretched her waist and stood up slowly. Feng Shi also stood up and stared at Elder Su with vigilance. There was a hint of fear on her face. Ling Long saw Feng Shi's action and patted his shoulder. "I'm here. What are you afraid of? I will protect you." "Princess Ling Long." Elder Su frowned and called out unhappily. "That's the person his lordship wants. This princess likes him." Ling Long raised her head. "He belongs to this princess. This princess will ask Imperial Father for him." "Princess Ling Long." Elder Su's expression sunk. "His lordship will not agree to your request. You are Princess Ling Long. You shouldn't be involved with these people. Whether he agrees or not is up to Father. It has nothing to do with you." Ling Long's expression turned cold. "Or, Elder Su thinks that you can replace Father's thoughts." "I don't dare." When Elder Su heard that, his expression changed as he lowered his head. If he were to wear this high hat on his head, if it reached his lordship's ears, that was regardless of whether he had ulterior motives. Even his lordship would not tolerate him. Ling Long snorted coldly, extremely arrogant. Then she raised her chin and asked arrogantly, "What are you doing here? Did Father ask you to bring him over?" "No." The veins on Elder Su's forehead bulged, but he managed to suppress them. "I just came to check on his condition." Ling Long raised her brows. "Since Lord Father doesn't intend to summon Cece, then let Cece follow this princess first." "Princess Ling Long, you mustn't do that." Elder Su glanced at Feng Shi and said, "His identity is rather special. He's under the strict supervision of a lord, so there's no room for any mistakes." "You mean to say something will happen to him if he hangs around this princess?" Ling Long sneered. Her exquisite and beautiful face was filled with arrogance. "In your eyes, this princess is a troublemaker? This subordinate dares not think so." Elder Su gritted his teeth as he spoke. The expression on his face was frozen. However, the words that came out of his mouth seemed to be for her sake. This subordinate is just worried that boy is too cunning and will deceive you, your highness, and hurt your heart. But I like him. Ling Long had no intention of compromising. As a result, in the end, Elder Su was the only one who compromised. After all, this was the princess that the Lord doted on the most. Elder Su agreed to let Feng Shi follow Ling Long. However, it was only limited to this underground palace. Chapter 4881. Elder Su took a step back. Ling Long naturally took a step back as well. In this underground palace, so be it. Anyway, no matter where it was, as long as she could play with Cici, it was fine. Ling Long didn't care. But Feng Shi's face turned pale. Princess Ling Long, you promised me. She promised to let him go. Why did she agree to Elder Su's words now? The range of activity was limited to this underground palace? What was the difference between locking him up? Ling Long held Feng Shi's hand and walked out of the room. The lights in the huge underground palace weren't bright, but not dark either. The candles hung on the walls lengthened their shadows. Ling Long asked with a serious expression, "Aren't you out now?" Feng Shi, you tricked me. I like you. Why would I trick you? Ling Long frowned. Didn't I do what I promised you? Let him go. Now, he had indeed left the house where he was being held captive. These words, there was nothing wrong with it. Feng Shi pursed her lips, unwilling to speak. Elder Su took a look at Feng Shi and then at the arrogant princess who didn't fly into a rage like usual, even though Feng Shi had given him a cold shoulder. He retracted his gaze and looked at the other disciples. Watch carefully. If you lose sight of him, all of you will die. Yes. The disciples of the Nether Palace were trembling in fear as they replied respectfully. Elder Su flicked his sleeves and left. Ling Long grabbed Feng Shi's hand. Let's go. I'll bring you to my room to play. There are many fun things inside. Before she could finish her words, Feng Shi swung her hand and slapped Ling Long's hand away. Her little face was filled with anger. I don't want to play with you. Without any warning, Ling Long was slapped away and staggered back a step. Yiqing Luo supported her from behind in time. She was a little girl who had been pampered since young. Just one slap. A large red patch appeared on Ling Long's fair and tender skin. It looked extremely shocking. The expressions of the palace of gloomy darkness disciples changed, and they rushed to Ling Long. How dare you? How dare you hurt Princess Ling Long? Immediately, other disciples of the Palace of Darkness lifted Feng Shi up. Just as he was about to slap her, stop. Ling Long's expression turned slightly cold. She reprimanded and lashed her whip at the disciple who slapped her. She said with a cold face, "Did I ask you to do it? Get lost." The Darkness Palace disciple who was whipped and the other disciples all took 2 steps back and lowered their heads in apology. Ling Long snorted coldly and looked back at Feng Shi. She stuffed the whip into Yiqing Luo's hand and strode over to Feng Shi. Why are you angry with me? She was arrogant and unreasonable when facing the disciples of the Dark Palace. When he looked at Feng Shi, there was nothing left. She patiently continued, I like you, but that doesn't mean you can trample on my good intentions. Feng Shi gritted her teeth. She had tricked him with words. Why did it sound like it was his fault? Just as he was about to say something, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of the black-robed young lady behind Ling Long. She shook her head at him. The words in Feng Shi's mouth stopped. She lowered her head and said in a muffled voice, I want to leave this place. Ling Long walked closer to him. I want to leave too. Aren't you a princess? Why can't you leave? Feng Shi asked. Ling Long said, other than leaving the restricted area that my father has set for me, I can't go anywhere else. Chapter 4882. You're my first friend, then you're such a pitiful princess. Feng Shi was stunned. She raised her eyes and saw the melancholy in Ling Long's eyes. All the anger he felt just now had dissipated in an instant. Ling Long chuckled, but that smile didn't reach her eyes and couldn't disperse the sadness in her eyes. Yes, I have the respect and power of a princess, so I have to bear the price of enjoying the treatment of a princess. At this moment, she had already addressed herself as I, not this princess. Here, besides father, no one dares to criticize or disobey me. But similarly, what I have to pay is my freedom. Ling Long slowly held Feng, she's little hand. You're my first friend? Feng, she was still in a daze. The hand that held his was very warm, like the sun, shining on him warmly. Feng Shi's heart skipped a beat as her clear eyes stared unblinkingly at the little girl in front of her. After some time, he held Ling Long's hand back. You're my first friend, too. Ling Long's brows relaxed. That pair of beautiful eyes curved into a beautiful arc. So, other than letting you leave this place, I can promise you anything you want. As she said that, she bent down slightly and got close to Feng Shi's ear. I will beg father to let you off. Feng Shi was still in a daze when Ling Long brought her to this underground palace, to her room. The princess's room was much more luxurious and exquisite than the room where Feng Shi was locked up, and it was filled with children's favorite toys, sweets, and snacks. She could tell Ling Long was indeed a doted palace mistress. She sent the two little dumplings back to their room. Yi Qing Luo was about to step into the room. Her wrist was pulled. Xiao Qi, what are you doing? Yi Qing Luo stopped in her tracks, looking at the person who was pulling her back in a daze. It was Ling Long's attendant. Yi Qing Luo deliberated on how to answer the attendant. She heard him continue. No one is allowed to enter Princess Ling Long's room. While Princess Ling Long is in a good mood, don't let her find out. Yi Qing Luo silently retracted her leg. Princess Ling Long sure has a lot of problems. She pursed her pink lips and quickly scanned Ling Long's room through the black robe. If Feng Shi stayed here, there shouldn't be any danger. She left the room and closed the door. Outside the door, the group of attendants finally heaved a sigh of relief. They leaned against the wall and sat unsteadily. Princess Ling Long seems to be in a good mood today. As long as we serve her carefully, we should be able to survive until tomorrow's shift. That brat just now scared me to death. He actually dared to reject Princess Ling Long. Luckily, Princess Ling Long is quite fond of that little brat. Otherwise, we will all be implicated. After today, we'll be able to change shift soon. In front of others, the servants were cold and aloof, like orderly puppets. At this moment, they were all grumbling softly. Yi Qing Luo casually found a place to sit down as she listened to the attendants' discussions. He roughly understood just how bad was Ling Long's reputation. The servants described her as an evil woman who had crawled out of hell. Unruly, willful, cruel, and bloodthirsty, killing without batting an eyelid. Yi Qing Luo listened with a face of suspicion. Although the cute and pretty little princess was a little unreasonable, she was still a little arrogant. But it was not to the extent, using vicious words like killing people like flax, cruel and bloodthirsty to describe her. Chapter 4883. How bad was Princess Ling Long's reputation? Yi Qing Luo also found out. They were Princess Ling Long's servants, and they worked in shifts. About 20 over people, 6 people would be chosen daily to take care of Princess Ling Long. Every time the servants took care of Princess Ling Long, there was a risk of losing their lives. Their lives depended on Princess Ling Long's mood. So they took care of Princess Ling Long. They were all on tenterhooks, afraid that they would lose their lives. The few of them were ridiculing. Suddenly one of the servants looked at Yi Qing Luo. Number 7, why are you so quiet today? Aren't you the one who said the most powerful? Yi Qing Luo, who was called out. She only wanted to be a quiet background. He was the 7th son of the emperor. Couldn't she know her place earlier? How was she going to maintain her image as the 7th servant? She felt like she was going to fall off the horse. Yi Qing Luo's heart roared as her brain worked quickly, suppressing her voice. Today, Princess Ling Long seems to be very happy. That's not true. The servant waved his hand. This is the first time Princess Ling Long interacted with a wimpy kid from the outside world. Princess Ling Long should have treated him as her little toy. From what I see, Princess Ling Long got a new toy and is so happy that she can't bear part with it. Number 7. Someone came over and sized up Yiqing Luo suspiciously. Princess Ling Long is happy with a new toy. What has it got to do with you not grumbling or being afraid? Even though they were separated by a black robe, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the other party's gaze, examining her. Yiqing Luo was extremely calm as her voice was deep. Because I am different from what you think. She waved away that person's hand and looked towards the tightly shut door. Princess Ling Long today, when she smiles. She looks very beautiful. Servant, so, live for justice? Because Princess Ling Long smiled beautifully. So, she couldn't even bear to grumble. Suddenly, squeak, the room door was opened. A young girl dressed in an exquisite long dress stood at the door. Princess Ling Long. The servants were so shocked that they jumped up from the ground and hurriedly stood up straight respectfully. Ling Long's beautiful big eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo, unable to tell the emotions within. The attendants held their breaths. He was afraid that if he was not careful, his life would be taken by this unruly and headstrong princess. Ling Long's vision stared at Yiqing Luo for some time. You said, "This princess is very beautiful?" Princess Ling Long, this is what she said. "It has nothing to do with us." The attendants immediately voiced out to clarify their relationship. However, Ling Long did not even bother to look at them. He only stared deeply at Yiqing Luo as he repeated his question. Say it one more time. Yiqing Luo's slightly drooping head slowly lifted up. Through the black robe, Yiqing Luo could see the sparkling light in the young and beautiful little princess's eyes. It was as dazzling as a luminous pearl. Yiqing Luo's pink lips moved as she said word by word. "If Princess smiles more often, you will definitely be more beautiful." As soon as he finished speaking, the attendants behind him all gasped in shock. He was quite frightened. This old seventh couldn't be crazy, right? She actually raised her opinion to Princess Ling Long. She was going to cause them to die. However, they trembled as they waited for a long time. They didn't see Princess Ling Long getting angry. On the contrary, Princess Ling Long turned around and walked into the room. She even said, Chapter 4884. She even said, "You come in with me." Looking at Ling Long's departing figure, the few attendants behind her lowered their voices. "You're in trouble for being targeted by Princess Ling Long." "All right, stop talking. If Princess Ling Long hears you, you'll be called in too." Number 7. I wish you good luck. Yiqing Luo entered Ling Long's room while the few of them were discussing. The door had just closed. Ling Long's voice was heard. "During this period of time, you have to report to me every day," which meant that she, Little Seven, could not participate in the shift system. Yiqing Luo naturally had no objections. When she heard that there was a shift system, she had been thinking about how she could avoid it. Before she could think of a foolproof way to bring Feng Shi out from the underground palace of the secluded palace. It was much safer to stay by Ling Long's side. Towards the habits of these attendants in the secluded palace, she didn't know if she was really put on shift, together with a group of familiar attendants. The possibility of her being exposed was too high, still staying by Ling Long's side. Presumably, Ling Long had no idea what kind of character her own attendant had. Moreover, children are easier to fool. Yiqing Luo was satisfied, yes. Time passed by quickly. A day had passed. Feng Shi stayed in Ling Long's room directly. Yiqing Luo, the attendant who was appointed to serve her personally, also stayed in Ling Long's room and didn't leave. The relationship between the two little dumplings after a day of interaction. They had really opened their hearts. They treated each other as their confidants. It was probably because Yiqing Luo had protected Ling Long in an absolutely protective manner. Or perhaps Feng Shi liked her more. Ling Long's attitude towards her was considered quite good. When the two of them were fooling around, or when the other attendants served exquisite delicacies, they were all invited to have their meals together. That was for a servant. In the secluded palace, it was the highest honor. The others originally thought that this number 7 was going to be dismembered by Princess Linglong, but they had not expected, in just a short few hours, number 7 foot had already gained Princess Linglong's recognition. He knew that. Princess Linglong liked it when people complimented her. They were praising him too much. It was too late for regrets. But there was no chance for regret. On the round mahogany table, the two little dumplings sat side by side, obediently eating the food in their bowls. Yiqing Luo sat beside Feng Shi, while serving the two little dumplings. "Cici, do you like the food here?" Linglong asked as she bit her wooden chopsticks and watched Feng Shi eat obediently without saying a word. Feng Shi put down her chopsticks and wiped her mouth. Then she looked at Linglong and said, "Delicious. If Cici likes it, I'll get the kitchen to make it for you every day." Linglong smiled. Feng Shi blinked her big eyes and then lowered her head slightly. "But I won't be able to eat it soon. As long as this princess is around, you can eat whatever you want." Linglong's vision shot towards Yiqing Luo. "Remember what Cici wants to eat. Go prepare it." Princess Linglong. Yiqing Luo also put down her chopsticks. Young Master Feng should not be because he wants to eat anything. She didn't beat around the bush as she continued. Young Master Feng is a hostage that Master specially instructed Elder Su to lock up here. A day has already passed, and the Lord should soon send news back and have someone take young Master Feng away. Chapter 4885. That's why young Master Feng feels that he won't be able to eat it soon. After a day of interaction, Yiqing Luo had some understanding towards this unruly little princess. You and her went around in circles. She absolutely couldn't understand the twists and turns. She couldn't figure out what you were hinting at. She could only point it out directly. Linglong then understood. The moment she said that, the entire room fell into silence. Linglong's hand, which was holding the wooden chopsticks, froze as she slammed it heavily on the table. "I will not let father take Cici away." Yiqing Luo met Linglong's sullen gaze as she spoke in a considerate tone. "Princess Linglong, I don't have any other intentions. I just want to remind you. In case Master wants to take young Master Feng away, and Princess Linglong can't accept it, thus hurting the harmony between you two. Even if you tell me now, I can't accept it." Linglong's exquisite and beautiful face turned serious as she looked at Feng Shi seriously. "I want Cici to stay by my side, to be my playmate for life. Princess Linglong's idea is good." Yiqing Luo's voice gradually became gentle. "But, Princess Linglong, have you ever thought?" Under the black robe, the young lady's gaze was very gentle. "Is young Master Feng willing?" Linglong was just about to reply confidently. How would he dare to not comply with my request? I like him so much. He will definitely like me too. What's there to be unwilling about? But when she saw Feng Shi's slightly gloomy eyes, she swallowed back the words that were on the tip of her tongue. She spat out 3 words, but she didn't say anything else. That's right. How would Cici agree to accompany her in this dark place for life? She couldn't force anyone, but she couldn't force herself to be her first friend, although she had never made friends before. But she also knew that friends couldn't be forced. Yiqing Luo looked at their silent expressions as she eased the atmosphere. "Princess Linglong, do you know the reason why Master kidnapped young Master Feng? If you know the reason, perhaps you can let young Master Feng stay by your side safe and sound." "I don't know." Linglong hung her head in defeat. "My father has never allowed me to ask about him." Yiqing Luo consoled him. "Young Master Feng is, after all, the Feng family's direct grandson, so Master shouldn't be too overboard." "No, I'm going to find my father." Linglong suddenly slammed the table and stood up. "Cici is my friend. I can't let royal father hurt Cici." Saying that, she didn't wait for Yiqing Luo's reply or Feng Shi's reaction. He hurriedly walked out of the door. That was called valiant and high-spirited. Yiqing Luo. This little princess was really a doer. He was in a hurry. "Princess Linglong, where are you going?" "Princess Linglong, Princess Linglong." Outside the door, the servants called out. Linglong walked very quickly. He completely ignored them. The attendants and the disciples of the palace of gloomy darkness who were guarding at the side found it strange. He pushed open the door. He saw Yiqing Luo dressed in a black robe, standing beside the mahogany table. Feng Shi, on the other hand, was sitting in front of a table full of delicacies, swinging her little feet. Number 7. The attendants shouted outside the door. Yiqing Luo turned around and said calmly, Princess Linglong went to look for Master and ordered me to look after young Master Feng. This excuse, there was no flaw. The attendants didn't ask any further. They closed the door again and stood guard outside. Fairy sister. There were no outsiders around. Feng Shi immediately jumped down from the chair and hugged Yiqing Luo's leg. Chapter 4886. Yiqing Luo bent over and carried Feng Shi in her arms, sizing him up. Are you hurt anywhere? Feng Shi shook his head. Even if they locked me up, they wouldn't dare to touch me. Yiqing Luo poked his forehead. I heard that you've created quite a ruckus here. In the house where he was locked up, everything was smashed to smithereens. It even made those secluded palaces' disciples fly into a rage. They even compromised and went out to buy candied haws. Feng, she was probably the only one who could enjoy such treatment. But the attitude of the secluded palace's disciples, on the contrary, it made Yiqing Luo feel uneasy. This was enough to tell. The mastermind of the secluded palace needed Feng Shi. What did the mastermind of the secluded palace want to do to Feng Shi? What did he need Feng Shi to do? Yiqing Luo suppressed the suspicions in her heart as she rubbed Feng Shi's head. Sister is here. I'll bring you out soon. She paused and lowered her voice. Princess Linglong likes you very much. If you keep following Princess Linglong, she can protect you. When she mentioned Linglong, the smile on the little man's face gradually faded. He pursed his lips as he drooped his head. His forehead rested on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. His voice sounded a little gloomy. Fairy sister, I don't want to lie to her. Yiqing Luo knew that the her he was referring to was Linglong. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. Cici also likes Princess Linglong. Amen. Feng Shi nodded without hesitation. Princess Linglong treats me sincerely. I don't want to lie to her. All right. Yiqing Luo had no intention to refute as she gently rubbed the little dumpling's head. Cici, do whatever you want to do. Feng Shi suddenly raised his head. Her black and white eyes were sparkling. He grinned as his eyes curved. Amen. All the uneasiness and unhappiness in the bottom of his heart had completely dissipated. But, Cici, we have to leave this place. Yiqing Luo's vision looked towards the tightly shut door. Princess Linglong isn't around, and the attendants and secluded palace's disciples outside all think that I'm guarding you. This is our best chance to leave. She reached out and pinched Feng Shi's nose. Cici, are you leaving? The smile on Feng Shi's face, which had just appeared, slowly faded away. He looked at Yiqing Luo in a daze. Then, he glanced at the room that was filled with Linglong's aura. He had just made up his mind to reveal his identity and Yiqing Luo's identity to Linglong. I want to tell her. He also sincerely wanted to be friends with her. I want to tell her. He wanted to take her out of this dark place and let her see other colors in the world. But he couldn't, even if he didn't know what kind of place this underground palace was. But it was also clear. This place was fraught with danger. Fairy sister came here to save him. He was definitely taking a huge risk. Now is the best chance to leave. I missed it. I'm afraid it's not just him who can't leave this place. Even Fairy sister would be implicated by him. He could not be so selfish. Although he was small, his thoughts were extremely mature. In the blink of an eye, he used a clear and resolute gaze to look at her. Fairy sister, I'll leave with you. He paused slightly, but before this, I want to tell her that I really treat her as my friend. Yiqing Luo touched his head. Go on. This was the little dumpling's first friend. Chapter 4887. Yiqing Luo couldn't deprive Feng Shi of the joy of making her first friend. And Linglong, that girl, wasn't a bad person. To Linglong, Xiao Duanzi was also her first friend. If she could, Yiqing Luo quite liked that the two of them could play together. It would be best if Feng Shi could change Linglong's spoiled and willful temper. Feng Shi took out a piece of paper and wrote down what he wanted to tell Linglong seriously. Every stroke was written in an extremely serious manner, until he checked it 3 times. He then put down the pen. He placed the paper that was filled with words under Linglong's pillow. "Fairy sister, I'm done." Feng Shi ran back to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo patted his little shoulder. "Have you decided?" Feng Shi nodded vigorously. The little girl's black and white eyes were filled with seriousness and solemnity. "I know that Grandpa is worried about me, and I also know that Fairy Sister took a huge risk to save me. I can't be willful and only think about myself." He wanted to accompany his first friend, to accompany the friend who was alone other than him. But now it wasn't the time. He couldn't because of the importance he attached to friendship, regardless of the others. He believed Princess Linglong would understand him. Yiqing Luo carried her with one hand. "My little Cici, you've really grown up." She pinched the little boy's face. "I'll bring you out now. Hold on tight to me. No matter what happens, don't make a sound. Can you do that?" Feng Shi nodded vigorously. Her little hands circled Yiqing Luo's neck. "Cici will not be a burden to Fairy Sister. Be good." Yiqing Luo carried Feng Shi and returned to the other side of the room. The Palace of Darkness really loved Linglong to the core. In this dungeon, which should be for the Jiang family's aristocrats, there was an extremely luxurious room specially built. Outside the window, on the other side of Linglong's room, was a flower bed, under the bright, luminous pearl. Those transplanted flowers were in full bloom, bright purple and red, extremely beautiful. Behind the flower bed, there was a towering wall. Yiqing Luo brought Feng Shi over the garden and climbed over the wall. When she looked down, below them was a pitch-black tunnel. He seemed to have returned to the tunnel that he had passed through before coming here. The other end of Linglong's room was actually connected to this passage. If he followed the path, he would be able to leave the underground palace. She could leave the underground palace now. However, what about Zhu Wuxin? Hiding a servant for such a long time. With Zhu Wuxin's skills, he shouldn't be discovered by those people from Dark Nether Palace. Even if they found out, he could also escape. However, now, she had left with Feng Shi. Would Zhu Wuxin think that she was in this underground palace and was looking for her everywhere? When Yiqing Luo thought of this, her brows creased tightly into a bundle. How troublesome. "Forget it. I'll send Feng Shi out first." Yiqing Luo took a look at the tunnel below. He was about to jump down. Suddenly, he heard a panicked roar from behind him. "Oh no, the little brat from the Feng family is gone." And 7th. What happened? Quick, hurry up and find him. The footsteps of the Dark Abyss Palace disciples and servants got closer. Oh no, they had been discovered. How could it be so fast? Yiqing Luo's pink lips pursed tightly as she lowered her head to look at the little one in her arms. "Cici, hold on tight." Chapter 4888. Feng Shi responded with an N. Yiqing Luo leaped up and landed lightly on the ground. Following that, she walked along the tunnel. It was pitch black inside the tunnel. She couldn't see the surrounding path. Yiqing Luo walked a few steps and sensed, not right. When she came here, she specially constructed a map of the tunnel's topography in her mind as she walked. If she walked through it again, she would definitely feel a sense of familiarity. But the tunnel she was walking on now, the feeling was totally different. This tunnel wasn't the tunnel to leave the underworld. Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled the fork in the road when she came over. Could it be the tunnel she was walking on now? Was it another fork in the road? But now it was basically impossible for her to turn back. The Palace of Darkness's disciples would not give her this chance. She could only move forward. Yiqing Luo walked forward quickly. while she was moving forward quickly. She could clearly hear footsteps from all directions, and the sound of the Palace of Darkness's disciples exchanging information. In front, she could faintly see a bit of light. Yiqing Luo quietly got closer. To his surprise, he realized that the passageway led to a huge courtyard. In this cold and gloomy underground cave, there was an inexplicable strange feeling. This place, what place was this? In this underground palace, why did they have to specially build such a courtyard that required so much time, effort, and money? Who was the person who stayed in this courtyard? Yiqing Luo recalled that Ling Long seemed to be the one who came from this tunnel. Could it be the person in the courtyard was the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness? Yiqing Luo's eyes wavered slightly. This side, do you want to go take a look? That's a forbidden area. But we searched the entire underground palace and didn't find Feng family's brat in number 7. The disciples guarding the entrance of the underground prison didn't see the both of them leaving. Perhaps they are hiding here. Behind them, the Palace of Darkness's disciples' voices were getting closer. They were still feeling uneasy, hesitating if they should come over to search. Yiqing Luo heard their discussion as her heart started to pound. This was a forbidden area? There was actually a forbidden area in the Palace of Darkness's base? What kind of secret or treasure was hidden here? Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows slightly, held Feng Shi tightly, and jumped into the courtyard. Forbidden areas were the best places to hide. It was the moment she jumped into the courtyard. Footsteps could be heard from outside the courtyard. The disciples of Gloomy Palace caught up. Are we going in? I don't think so. What if the person is really hiding inside? Elder Su said that if we lose sight of him, all of us will have to die with him. Either way, I'll die. Let's go in. The disciples of Darkness Palace chattered for a long time outside the courtyard. In the end, he decided enter Yiqing Luo's current position. It was very close to the courtyard gate. As long as those people came in, she would definitely be discovered. But the place where she was standing now was a little awkward. The ground was covered with a thick layer of withered yellow leaves. All she had to do was lift her foot slightly and put it down. The rustling of leaves was extremely obvious. When those people heard it, they would be able to detect her position. The Palace of Darkness's disciples got closer to the courtyard gate bit by bit. From the footsteps, there were about 10 over of them. Yiqing Luo's heart started to race. The courtyard gate, slowly, was pushed open. Chapter 4889. 10 over figures walked into the courtyard uneasily. They just needed to take another 2 steps forward. Just a side glance, and there was a possibility. See, her. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers pressed on Feng Shi's head. She was silently guessing in her heart whether there would be a chance for Feng Shi to escape later. Just as the dozen or so figures entered the courtyard and were about to look around, her body suddenly felt light. Her mouth was covered by someone. She was dragged onto the big tree branch behind her. The leaves rustled. This attracted the attention of the secluded palace's disciples. Under the dim illumination of a luminous pearl, the leaves swayed along with the chilly wind. The rustling sound of the leaves rubbing against each other could be heard. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It's just the wind. Nothing. What nonsense. Yiqing Luo's heart was roaring like a dragon. Her mouth was covered, and she couldn't even make sound. The secluded palace's disciples were still scurrying around. She didn't dare to struggle or move, until the secluded palace's disciples went around the courtyard and searched one round before leaving. Yiqing Luo then yanked away the hand covering her mouth. Zhuwuex, why are you here? She was entirely shrouded in a black robe. Earlier, when she was dragged up the tree and covering her mouth, they were all separated by a black robe, but it still couldn't be concealed. A faint plum fragrance. It was a clear and cold aura unique to Zhu Wuxin. Zhu Wuxin held Feng Shi steadily with one hand as he slowly retracted the other. Coincidence. Do you think I'll believe that? Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes. Hiding an attendant. You've already disappeared and now you ran to this secluded area of the secluded palace. Yiqing Luo's slender eyes rose slightly as she tilted her head slightly. On the surface, you specially brought me to the secluded palace's base to save someone. In actual fact, you have your own motive. Zhu Wu Xian's thin lips moved, as though he wanted to say something. Under the dim and hazy light, that pair of icy cold, deep eyes were tainted with a thin sense of disappointment. But, in the end, he didn't say anything, as though he silently agreed with Yiqing Luo's words. Yiqing Luo leapt down from the tree and gathered the loose black robe around her. I'm not too concerned about what your motive is. I just want to know, are you going to leave this base of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness? You can't leave now. Zhu Wu Xian's voice was very calm. The disciples of Gloomy Palace will seal all the passages. Once you show yourself, you will fall into their trap. He paused for a moment before continuing. You should know very well that the Palace of Gloomy Shadows is best at all kinds of evil forbidden arts. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched. Then we're just going to sit here and wait for death? Zhu Wuxin was silent for a moment. Let's hide here for now. When their guard loosens, I'll go lure them away. This was a forbidden area. The disciples of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness came around. He did not dare to do it a second time. It was indeed a relatively safe place at the moment. But there must be a reason why the Forbidden Grounds are called as such. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Are you sure there's no problem for us to stay in this courtyard? Okay. Zhu Wuxin carried Feng Shi in his arms and walked toward the depths of the courtyard. Feng Shi had been taken away. Yiqing Luo had no other choice. She followed Zhu Wu Xian's footsteps as they stepped into the depths. In this courtyard, there were about 7 to 8 exquisitely decorated rooms. Every single room, the distance between each room was very far, as though it was an independent living space. Yiqing Luo followed Zhu Wu Xian, and after a few turns, finally they stopped in front of a room. Zhu Wu Xian walked in calmly. Chapter 4890. Yiqing Luo looked at him as he opened the room's door with ease. With great precision, he placed Feng Shi on a chair in the dark. A strange feeling arose from the bottom of her heart. She frowned slightly as she stared at Zhu Wu Xian. This room is your room. Zhu Wu Xian's figure paused slightly as he poured the tea, but it was only for a moment. He continued to pass the teacup to Feng Shi as he replied, Yiqing Luo, no, not. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed slightly as a strange glint flashed past her eyes. She originally thought that Zhu Wu Xian's room was in the forbidden grounds of the secluded palace. However, Zhu Wuxin denied it. Zhu Wu Xian disdained to lie. What he said should be the truth. But if this place had nothing to do with Zhu Wu Xian, then why was Zhu Wu Xian so familiar with the structure of this room? Apparently, it wasn't his first time here. Zhu Wu Xian seemed to have seen through Yiqing Luo's doubts. In the dark, his eyes were as deep as the sea as he stared at her without blinking. It was quiet and serene, floating and sinking. This is Gu Jingyu's room. In the dark, the man's voice sounded especially hoarse and ethereal. Yiqing Luo went into a slight daze. Gu Jingyu, the mastermind behind the secluded palace. Disciple? The palace lord on the surface? This was his room? The so-called forbidden grounds in the secluded palace indeed referred to the place where the people with status in the secluded palace stayed. Like Gu Jingyu, Ling Long, and the like. Then, the mastermind behind the secluded palace? That person can't possibly stay here. Zhu Wu Xian opened his mouth calmly as his voice sounded cold. Finishing his words, he sat down on another chair. Gu Jingyu isn't in the base. If the lights are lit, it will easily alert the servants in the courtyard. The room was dark. It wasn't so dark that one couldn't see their fingers in front of them, but it was slightly dim and one could vaguely see the silhouette of a figure. Yiqing Luo walked slowly to Feng Shi's side and stood still as both her hands gently pressed on Feng Shi's shoulder. Seeing Feng Shi drinking the tea in the cup, She rubbed his head and asked Zhu Wuxian, "Why do you know this place?" "I came here when I was discussing matters in the past," Zhu Wuxian explained. In other words, he had been here before. He was referring to the time when they worked together with the Palace of Darkness. And now he was innocent. Yiqing Luo nodded. "Then how long are we going to hide here? It's not convenient for you to bring a child with you now." Zhu Wuxin's expression was calm. "Wait until there are fewer people guarding the entrance before you leave." Yiqing Luo pursed her lips slightly and didn't reply. The room fell into a dead silence. Yiqing Luo looked at Feng, she's exhausted look. He bent down and picked him up, wanting to let him sleep for a while. The next moment, Zhu Wuxin's hands were already stretched out. He picked up Feng Shi before her. "There's a bed over there." Yiqing Luo remained silent. He followed Zhu Wuxin into the inner room. Feng Shi had been a bit nervous, but after lying on the bed for a while, he fell asleep. Yiqing Luo sat by the bed as her gaze congealed on Feng Shi's sleeping face. Zhu Wuxin stood at the side. "You can also rest for a while and recuperate." "No need," Yiqing Luo replied indifferently. There wasn't much fluctuation in her tone. In the darkness, Zhu Wuxian's eyes rippled slightly. His eyes, which were as deep as the sea, gazed deeply at the young lady. "You really want to cut off all relations with me?" he asked. Yiqing Luo didn't even raise her head. "There's no relationship between you and me." Chapter 4891. Zhu Wuxian scoffed lightly. There was a hint of cold mockery in her laughter. "Really?" His voice was hoarse, and his emotions were unclear. "If a woman is heartless, she's really heartless." Yiqing Luo's expression remained unchanged. "I don't know about other women, but I'm indeed this heartless. So, you don't have to express your goodwill to me intentionally." She had no way to stop others from liking her and being obsessed with her. The only thing she could do was to reject. No matter if Zhu Wuxian was obsessed with her in the past, or the current adoration. That wasn't important, because no matter what kind of feelings, it had nothing to do with her. "But this kind of you makes me like you even more." Zhu Wuxian seemed as though he couldn't hear Yiqing Luo's rejection as he gave a low laugh. That murmur of a voice, it was filled with a strange charm. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as a strange feeling arose in her heart. But not waiting for Yiqing Luo to speak again, Zhu Wuxian had already turned around. "Take a rest first. I'll go out and take a look." After Zhu Wuxian left, there was only her and the sound of sleep Feng Shi left in the room. An unfamiliar place, an unfamiliar environment. Even though Zhu Wuxian said that as long as there were no lights here, it would be very safe, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pay attention to the surrounding environment. She didn't dare to let her guard down. In her mind, she had been rehearsing the plan to leave the underground palace, not knowing how long had passed. Ding! A soft sound was heard from afar. She could faintly see the lights shining brightly. The bright lights were getting nearer. Yiqing Luo's heart jolted violently. Someone came. She stood up alertly as she listened sharply to the movements outside. Orderly footsteps slowly got nearer. Yiqing Luo leaned close to the window. She could faintly see about 20 to 30 secluded palace's disciples directly passing by the house she was in as they headed forward. Those secluded palace's disciples' discussions were clearly transmitted into her ears. "The underground palace is only so big. We've already searched the entire place and still can't find anyone. Don't tell me they really hid in this forbidden grounds?" If they really hid in this forbidden grounds and offended that person in the main house, he would die even worse. That Feng family's disciple, Elder Su, said we must keep her alive. We have to find him before that person in the main house finds out. Just like that, we ran into the forbidden area again. If that person in the main house finds out, I'm afraid we won't be able to escape. What are you afraid of? Don't we have Princess Linglong to back us up? Just as he was speaking, Yiqing Luo heard a familiar voice ringing. "Search for this princess. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we have to find them." That was Princess Linglong. Princess Linglong's tender voice was filled with anger. Her voice was slightly sharp. So what if it's a forbidden area? If royal father blames me, this princess will bear the responsibility. Don't let go of any room. He searched every inch of the place. I will make it hard for them to escape, even if they have wings. Those angry orders. This made Yi Qing Luo's brows creased. From the looks of it, Linglong did not see the letter that Feng she had left for her. Linglong felt that Feng she had lied to her. Their sincere friendship had been fed to the dogs. So now, all he could think of was, he caught her and Feng Shi. Yi Qing Luo could sense it. Feng Shi would probably be sad for a period of time. To coax Linglong back would probably be a little difficult. But before this, she had to pay attention. Would those secluded palaces' disciples really barge into this room to capture them? If they really came in, where would she hide if she took Feng Shi with her? Chapter 4892. The noises outside got louder and louder. More and more people came. It seemed like all the disciples of the gloomy palace in the underground palace had gathered here. About half an hour later, the noises outside slowly became softer. Indistinctly, they heard Ling Long's angry bellow. What's the use of father keeping you bunch of rubbish? You can't even find two people. Search for this princess. Search clearly. Don't miss any spot. Ling Long bellowed furiously. The bunch of secluded palace's disciples were trembling in fear. They were afraid that they would make Princess Ling Long unhappy and become a target. And at this moment, an extremely low voice was heard from outside the door. This room, do you want to search? The voice was very close. Yi Qing Luo knew. This person was asking about the room. He was referring to the room she was in right now. Her heart thumped fiercely and she held her breath. And just as that secluded palace's disciple asked this question, the other secluded palace's disciples all turned silent. This room is Palace Lord's room. Palace Lord hates people touching his things. If Palace Lord knew that we had stepped into his room, I'm afraid. The secluded palace's disciples didn't finish their words, but everyone understood the meaning behind those words. Palace Lord had always been a loner. He wasn't close to anyone, and he hated anyone who got close to his turf. Previously, there was a female disciple who tried to sneak into Palace Lord's room. In the end, she was thrown out of the room. That female disciple ended up in a miserable state. After that, Palace Lord even got someone to clean up his room from top to bottom, as though it was tainted with something dirty. From now on, everyone knew about Palace Lords. Mysophobia. There's no sound in the room, so it shouldn't be possible for him to be inside. Someone found an excuse. That Feng family's girl is so young, so she shouldn't know how to restrain her presence. If that brat is really hiding here, with so many of us here, how could we not sense his presence? Everyone nodded their heads in agreement. A group of people, ready to leave again. Yi Qing Luo's heart didn't feel at ease because of this. As expected, the next moment, she heard Ling Long's voice nearing them. What are you all standing here for? Have you checked that house? Princess Ling Long, this is the palace master's room. A disciple of the abysmal palace reminded. So what if it's Brother Yu's room? Go in and check. Ling Long directly dragged him into the room. If Brother Yu blames me, I will take responsibility. Bang! The door was slammed open. A loud sound of collision rang out. Yi Qing Luo immediately stepped back and bent down to carry Feng Shi. His gaze focused on the window at the side. Little by little, he carefully moved towards the window. Under Linglong's threatening gaze, the disciples of Abyss Palace entered the room uneasily. The flames flickered. Yi Qing Luo could clearly see the reflection of a few figures outside. Step by step, he approached them. They were in the foyer. She's in the back room. They were only a few steps away. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as she bent down slightly, preparing to leap out of the window. What are you doing? Suddenly, a melodious voice like a bell rang out. That voice was soft and gentle, yet it did not lose the charm of a mature woman. It was extremely pleasant to the ears. Moreover, it was filled with the dignity of a superior. The moment this voice was heard, the entire courtyard's voices stopped abruptly. Even the people outside the room froze on the spot, motionless. Chapter 4893. Sister Qingge. When Linglong heard that voice, her tone became much more obedient. The voice of the woman named Qingge came again. What's with all the noise? The person that father caught ran away. I'm catching them, Linglong replied obediently. She was no longer as arrogant as before. Go ahead and catch them. Don't make a scene here, Qingge said in a low voice. Go and get everyone back. Don't run into the courtyard. Sister Qingge, Linglong said coquettishly. Those two people have angered me. I want them to pay the price. I've searched the entire underground palace, but I can't find them. They must be hiding here. How would I not know if they are hiding here? Qingge's tone was even more stern. If you continue to make a scene, you can forget about staying in this base. Linglong sniffled in fear. She had never been wrong before. She felt aggrieved and indignant. How could he still care about the respect he had for the other party? Linglong harumphed. Do you think I don't know that you brought an outsider to hide in the courtyard behind father's back? Qingge's tone was low and threatening. Linglong was unmoved. He's a man, right? Sister Qingge, you like him, right? But if this matter were to reach royal father's ears, guess what would happen to royal father? Are you threatening me? Qingge's tone was cold and murderous. Linglong was a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. She was extremely fearless. I'm merely reminding Big Sis Qing Pigeon that no matter how much Imperial Father dotes on you, he will definitely not allow you to step on his bottom line. Good, very good. If you want to make a scene, go ahead. Qingge was so angry that she laughed. I'll let you search here. I want to see what you can find out. Qingge's words made Linglong cower. She had forcefully brought the disciples of the Palace of Darkness to search the courtyard. He forcefully led the Dark Nether Palace disciples to search the courtyard. This was already a violation of his father's rules. It was a well-known forbidden area. Only she and her brothers and sisters could enter. The other disciples of the Palace of Darkness, including Elder Su and the others, were not allowed to enter. The other disciples of the Nether Palace, even Elder Su and the others, were not allowed to step in. She wanted to capture them and pretend that nothing had happened. They wanted to pretend that nothing had happened after arresting him. He did not expect to be caught red-handed by the pigeon. If Qing Pigeon told father, no matter how much her lord father pampered her in the palm of his hand, he would probably blame her. Linglong pondered for a moment. With a wave of his hand, he turned around and left. I'm not investigating anymore. Anyway, if he really ran into this forbidden area, Sister Qing Pigeon will have to take responsibility. I have nothing to worry about. With that, he led his men and left the courtyard in a grandiose manner. Silence gradually returned to the courtyard. Those messy auras and noisy footsteps had also disappeared. However, Yiqing Luo held Feng Shi in her arms and stood rooted to the ground, not moving at all, because she could sense it. The woman named Qingge. He did not leave. She was still standing at the open door, even though there was a wall between them. Yiqing Luo seemed to be able to feel that. Qingge's line of sight was directed towards her. Moments later, Qingge walked into the room. Yiqing Luo's heart jumped. What's the matter? What happened? Suddenly, a mellow voice which was like fine wine drifted into Yiqing Luo's ears in this quiet and spacious courtyard. It was just a simple sentence. It made Yiqing Luo's eyes widen. Her petite body suddenly tensed up. A whirlpool seemed to form beneath her eyes. Chapter 4894. And at this moment, Qingge walked into the room. When she heard that voice, she immediately stopped in her tracks. Even her voice became high-pitched. It's just that the princess is fooling around. It's nothing serious. She left the room and closed the door. After that, she walked briskly towards the direction of the voice. The tone changed from Qingge, and that briskly footsteps. Yiqing Luo was sure. She was indeed like what Linglong had said. adoring that man. But Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes trembled slightly. She stood stiffly on the spot, in a daze for some time, until her arms, which were hugging Feng, she felt a little heavy. She then regained her senses and placed Feng Shi back on the bed. She sat back on the bed. Her long and narrow eyes were cold in the darkness, as though it had blended in with the ink. Did she hear wrongly? That voice earlier was familiar, even if it was just one word. She could tell who it was. DMO Xian. That was DMO Xian's voice. Was it an illusion? Had she missed DMO Xian too much and heard wrongly? Yiqing Luo kept trying to find excuses, but she was very clear. There was no way she could have heard DMO Xian's voice wrongly. His voice was so familiar that it penetrated deep into her bones. Her heart was in a mess. Why was DMO Xian in the base of secluded palace? If he was so close, why hadn't he gone to the Feng residence to look for her for such a long time? And what was the relationship between him and that lady named Qingge? The more she thought, the more confused her thoughts became. Various kinds of melodramatic plots played in her mind. Of course, these melodramatic plots weren't because DMO Xian had betrayed Cheijio or had fallen in love with someone else. She had 100% trust in DMO Xian, but she couldn't control her imagination. Hashtag other ladies were obsessed with his peerless looks and forced him to marry her hashtag. No matter what DMO Xian's reason was. He was alone, meeting a lady whom she didn't know. This was a huge mistake. Believing was one thing. However, it was another matter to feel unhappy in his heart. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched into a fist. He continued to let his imagination run wild. She reckoned that she would have to demolish the house. No, she must go over personally and ascertain with her own eyes whether that person was DMO Xian or not. If it really was DMO Xian, let's see why he's here. Yiqing Luo glanced at Feng Shi and tapped her forehead with her fingertip. A faint wisp of profound light seeped into the center of Feng Shi's forehead. Then, she tucked him in and stood up. He flipped his palm. A snow-white dumpling was standing next to Feng Shi. Yiqing Luo patted its head lightly. Chi-Chi, I'll be right back. There was that farce just now. If nothing went wrong, this place should be safe. He asked Chi-Chi to stay here and watch over Feng Shi. If there was anything, she would know in time. Yiqing Luo's figure was like a ghost as she blended into the night. He didn't notice it at the moment when she left. In a dark corner, a tall and straight figure stood there quietly, staring at the young girl's departing figure without blinking. The wind blows. The man's red robe was like fire, rippling. His thin lips curled into a cold arc with a faint smile. He was obviously smiling, but his whole body was emitting a cold intent. Yiqing Luo followed the memory of the voice just now. After Linglong's disturbance in the courtyard, it was very quiet now. There was no sign of anyone. Yiqing Luo's journey was smooth. There were many rooms here, and they were all pitch black. Chapter 4895. Yiqing Luo passed through a few rooms. Her gaze locked onto the front. In the middle of the courtyard was the largest and most luxurious house. She could vaguely see the bright, luminous pearl light, like a star in the dark night. It was there. Yiqing Luo stared at that huge house, but her footsteps slowly came to a halt. That familiar voice seemed to be reverberating in her mind. Over and over again, it reminded her. That was indeed DMO Xian's voice. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes. Her gaze landed on the red ring on her slender fingertip. One could vaguely see a vivid and lifelike phoenix stretching its most beautiful figure on the blood jade-like ring. She gently stroked the ring. This profound phoenix ring was a mandarin duck ring like DMO Xian's profound dragon ring. If DMO Xian was really here, the profound phoenix ring should have some reaction. But now, the profound phoenix ring had no reaction at all. This was why. Yiqing Luo curled her fingers tightly. Her gaze was on the profound phoenix ring, quietly staring for a while. She took a deep breath and moved toward the room again, without making a sound. Just as she got closer, Yiqing Luo heard a sound coming from inside the room. It was a woman's light footsteps and a gentle and elegant laughter. This laughter was inexplicably piercing. A man and a woman alone in this place. And they were laughing so happily. What was so funny? Yiqing Luo suppressed the surging unhappiness in her chest and calmed herself down. What she heard was false. She couldn't simply imagine. Yiqing Luo held her breath and followed the direction of the laughter to confirm the woman's location. Following that direction, she quietly moved closer. Her movements were very light. While moving, there was no sound at all. She neared the innermost room's window. Yiqing Luo looked through the half-open window. She saw the bright, luminous pearl light spilling out from the window. Yiqing Luo turned sideways and quietly looked through the window at the situation inside the room. Inside the room, the furnishings were elegant and there was a faint fragrance. One look and you knew it was an exquisite woman's study room. The surroundings were filled with bookshelves and all kinds of books. There was a long table that was bent over, and it was filled with books and scrolls. Yiqing Luo's corner. They could only see a fairy-like woman in a long white dress sitting on one side of the long table, whereas opposite the lady, Yiqing Luo could only see half a side face of the figure. The figure was tall and slender, beautiful and straight like jade. It was just a glance. Yiqing Luo was certain. That guy was her Xian. Damn it. Her Xian was meeting girls behind her back. Should she rush in and catch the woman? Or should she squat outside and watch what kind of shady business they were doing behind her back? In Yiqing Luo's heart, it was as if 10,000 horses were galloping and roaring. That little princess is very willful. I'm sorry for disturbing you. The woman spoke in a gentle and graceful manner. Her eyes flickered, and her expression was full of tenderness and affection. Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. He had the urge to strangle that woman. The man didn't even raise his head, as if he didn't see the woman's flirtatious gaze. He lowered his head and searched through the books and scrolls on the table. His slender, jade-like fingers stirred the chaos on the table. It's fine. Too cold and in different words. But it made Qing Ji's eyes gush with joy, but she pretended to be reserved and tried to find a topic. I heard that the Lord kidnapped the young master of the Feng family and was rescued by someone. That little princess must be furious. Chapter 4896. The man who had been looking down at the book suddenly raised his eyes. Her black hair was as fine as flowing water and spread out like fine silk. Under the bright light of the night pearl, it rippled with a black luster. What did you say? The man's voice was deep, without much emotion. But Qing Ji's eyes were filled with joy. This was the first time he took the initiative to respond to her. Did this mean, was he interested in what he had to say? Qing Gu suppressed the excitement in her heart and continued the topic. That little princess is very angry. She is now looking for someone in the underground palace. The previous sentence. The man said faintly. Qing Gu thought for a moment. The young master of the Feng family? Why did he kidnap the Feng family? The man asked in a deep voice. Qing Gu shook her head. Maybe because the Feng family is related to that. She looked down at the messy books and paintings on the table. Maybe his lord has found another way. She didn't know if it was an illusion. When she finished this sentence, the man's eyes seemed to sink a little. But when she looked carefully, the man's expression was still calm, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. It was rare for a man to be interested in her topic. Although Qing Gu felt strange, she didn't want to end the topic like this, so she continued, the Feng family is really capable. They actually found this place to save people, but it's easy to come in, but difficult to get out. Not only can that person not save people, I'm afraid he will also die here. Look at how angry the little princess is. I'm afraid when the two people are found, they will be dead. The man didn't say anything at this moment. Instead, he looked down lightly. His eyes were a little cold. His breath was inexplicably cold. Chinga sensed that something was wrong. Her smiling eyes dimmed slightly. She seemed to be testing, but also seemed to be inadvertently asking, "You seem to care a lot about the Feng family?" The man didn't even lift his eyelids. He didn't mean to answer. "If you're really interested in the Feng family, I can also help you bring the young master of the Feng family and the person who came to save people here." Qingge guessed the man's thoughts and suggested. As she spoke, she sized up the man's expression. The man lowered his head. His fine black hair covered half of his face. His expression was half hidden. He couldn't see it clearly. Qingge was a little unfathomable. She looked at the handsome half of the man's face and said tentatively, "Little princess, you couldn't find them even after searching the entire underground palace. Perhaps they really are hiding here. As long as they enter this courtyard, I will be able to find them." For some unknown reason, Qingge always felt that the man in front of her was like a god, noble and elegant. He had an inexplicable concern for the people of the Feng family. However, after probing, the man's expression did not change. Even when she took the initiative to mention that she was going to look for the young master of the Feng family, he calmly spat out 2 words, "No need." It was a gentle and slow, simple, but not rude rejection. It seemed that the matters of the Feng family had nothing to do with him. Qingge lowered her beautiful eyes and suppressed the strange feeling in her heart. Maybe she thought too much? Qingge was relieved. Her cherry lips evoked an elegant smile. She held the book in her hand, got up, and walked towards the man. "Look at this. Doesn't it look like what you were looking for?" Chapter 4897. She walked to the man's side. She placed the book in her hand in front of the man. Her long white dress fluttered and brushed against the man's purple robe. She leaned over slightly and lifted her wrist slightly, brushing past the man's ear, and landed on the book. This distance would be very close. And this position would also pull the relationship between the two closer. Qingge was confident. Take out this angle, the most beautiful side. Let this man's sight stop on her for a few more breaths. Outside the window, Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly and stared at Qingge fiercely, getting closer and closer to the man's body, especially when she saw Qing Ji's long veil brushing against the man's robe. She couldn't wait to rush in. The two separated. That Qingge wanted to seduce her man? Wasn't it good to live well? What was she thinking about? And Xian, that pig trotter, why didn't he avoid it? Why did he let Qingge get close to him? Did he still have any self-awareness as a married man? No way. She wanted to rush in. She wanted to tear that Qingge who wanted to get close to her man into pieces. Ow, ow. So angry, so angry. So angry that she wanted to roar like an evil dragon. Calm down, calm down. Old man Song's voice interrupted Yiqing Luo's inner drama. He coughed lightly and comforted her. "You must believe in the Overlord. He is the man you like." "Of course I believe him." Yiqing Luo said this sentence without any hesitation. She had never said that she didn't believe in Dmo Xian. But believing in Dmo Xian didn't mean that she couldn't feel good. How could those wild chickens which came out of nowhere, how could they run around Dmo Xian? Since you believe in him, then you should believe that he will not have any ill intentions towards you. Old man Song could clearly feel Yiqing Luo's suppressed manic emotions. Yiqing Luo replied naturally, "Of course." She raised her chin and sneered in her heart. "That Qingge, is she better looking than me? Smarter than me? Just a piece of trash." Old man Song listened to the young lady's sophistry. How could a piece of trash make her so angry? Was she really as calm as she looked on the surface? He didn't dare to say it, nor did he dare to ask. Yiqing Luo stared fixedly at the two people who were getting nearer and nearer. He almost rolled up his sleeves and climbed in through the window at this moment. The man sat in front of the table with his head slightly lowered. It was as though he had sensed something. He turned his head and looked out of the window. His obsidian eyes were as deep as the sea. It was like a whirlpool that could cause one to fall into it with a single glance. Yiqing Luo leaned against the wall, taking big mouthfuls of air silently as she asked in her mind, "Did he see it? Did he see it?" I dodged so quickly that he probably didn't see me, right? Just now at the critical moment. She jerked her head back. But she did not know. If DMO Xian had captured her silhouette, she was very fast. But DMO Xian's acuity was extraordinary. Even if he saw it, he would know it was you and would not come out to catch you. What's there to be afraid of? Old Man Song did not understand what Yi Qing Luo was panicking about. Yi Qing Luo hugged her head. If Ah Xian knew that I was peeping at him, I would be so shameless. Old Man Song. Inside the house, the man who was looking out of the window had a trace of mischievous smile in his eyes. Even his entire face seemed to have softened a little. Chapter 4898. Qinggu was preparing to approach the man quietly to carry out her plan. What entered her eyes was a smear of gentleness. Her heart felt as though it had been shot by an arrow as a little deer was pounding around. Overlord. A flirtatious voice called out to the man softly. Qing Ji's body leaned forward slightly. As she wanted to get closer, a swoosh sound was heard. Qing Ji's outstretched hand was blocked by a book. Tightly, the end of the book was slightly exerted. Qinggu was pushed 2 steps away from the man. That book was casually thrown aside from the man's hand. That kind of nonchalance, as though he was throwing away unnecessary rubbish. Overlord. Qing Ji's heart skipped a beat as her voice turned hoarse. Her delicate and gentle face revealed a tinge of coquettish grumbling. She hadn't finished her words. Her throat was choked by the man's icy cold gaze. Don't come near me. The man's voice was emotionless, so bland that it was almost cold. The kind of coldness and heartlessness, a direct and decisive rejection. Qing Ji's heart suddenly felt a little pain, but she still lowered her brows, lowering her attitude to the lowest. Yes, I've overstepped. When Yi Qing-gu cautiously stuck her head out again, looking into the window, Qing-gu had already returned to her original seat. As for DMO Xian, he was at his original position, not moving at all. He seemed to be very focused, lowering his head to look at the book in his fingers. From the looks of it, DMO Xian should not have sensed her presence earlier, right? She had already dodged in time. If DMO Xian saw it, based on his vigilance, he would definitely check it out. But DMO Xian had no reaction at all. He should not have sensed it. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. While she was relaxing, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but think. What was DMO Xian trying to investigate in this base of secluded palace? This woman called Qinggu. What the hell was this? From Linglong's words earlier, she could tell. The people in secluded palace actually knew that there was an outsider man in Qing Ji's room. Presumably that sinister and cunning person behind the scenes in secluded palace knew about this. But why? Would he allow DMO Xian to stay in secluded palace's base? The people behind the palace of gloomy darkness were not afraid. Had DMO Xian really found something? He was deep in thought. Yi Qing Luo suddenly raised her vigilant eyes and looked behind her. She heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Under the misty night sky, the light from the luminous pearl shining through the window flickered. A figure walked out of the darkness. Her red dress was completely different from her cold and indifferent temperament, but it had a different kind of tension and charm. Zhu Wuxin, how'd he find his way here? Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly as she shot him a warning stare. Zhu Wuxin's sleeve moved slightly, revealing a small figure. Xiao Tuanzi opened her eyes and looked around, her eyes filled with worry and anxiety. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased even more tightly. Why did Zhu Wuxin bring Fengxi here? She cautiously glanced through the window and saw that the man was still maintaining his original posture. The person in the house was DMO Xian. That man was too sharp. There is some movement here. It was highly possible that DMO Xian would sense it. She took quick steps forward and took Fengxi from Zhu Wuxin's arms. Fengxi immediately wrapped her arms tightly around her neck, as though she had been given a huge shock. Yi Qing Luo took a look at the direction of the room and patted Feng Shi's back lightly. Her gaze congealed slightly, as though it was covered with a layer of darkness. Chapter 4899. The young lady was quiet, and her gaze was heavy. She looked at Zhu Wu Xian for a long time before she slowly retracted her gaze. Then she hugged Feng Shi tightly and turned to leave. Zhu Wu Xian's icy cold lips curled upwards, revealing an unfathomable smile. There was Zhu Wuxin and Feng Shi. If there was any movement between the two of them, it would be a piece of cake for the people in the room to find out, although she was very unwilling to let the two of them be alone in the room. But now, for Feng Shi and her safety, and because of DMO Xian, she wasn't clear about the reason why DMO Xian was in the base of the Palace of Darkness. But DMO Xian must have his own motives. She couldn't disturb DMO Xian, and she couldn't let the disciples of the Palace of Darkness disturb DMO Xian. Overlord. Qing Ji's voice was as gentle as the wind. She stared at DMO Xian's slender, jade-like fingers that were holding onto a piece of paper. This page, is there a clue? He stared at the contents of the page. It had been a quarter of an hour. He didn't turn the page. He just stared at it in a daze. This made Qing Ge, who had been paying attention to him, feel strange. Just as Qing Ge shouted, "Lord Dizun," DMO Xian's fingers tightened. The thin book paper was torn in half with a tearing sound. In the quiet study, the sound was extremely clear. Overlord? Qing Ge was startled. DMO Xian slammed the book on the table. The force was so great that the books on the table were blown away by the strong wind, which scattered all over the floor. There was no emotion on that peerless face. Between his brows was a bone-chilling coldness. It was as if it carried the force of a thunderbolt. A storm was brewing. Overlord, what's the matter? This was the first time Qing Ge had seen such a powerful DMO Xian. Her delicate body trembled slightly from the shock. DMO Xian's dark eyes were fixed on the direction outside the window. The wind was blowing, and there was no sound outside the window. That was the owner of the pair of eyes that was watching him. The aura had disappeared, and at the moment when he disappeared, he could clearly feel it. The other was an aura that made people want to do evil. Yiqing Luo carried Feng Shi as she returned to Gu Jingyu's room. Why are you awake? Yiqing Luo rubbed Feng Shi's head, indicating that he could speak now. Feng Shi's face turned red as she hugged Yiqing Luo tightly. Cici thought that because Cici was too lazy and only knew how to sleep, Fairy Sister didn't want Cici anymore. The little person's voice was crisp and clear, and there was even some fear and panic in it. Yiqing Luo placed her by the bedside. No matter, it's not entirely Cici's fault that Cici wants to sleep. She glanced meaningfully at Zhu Wu Xian, her pink lips curling into a deep arc with unknown meaning. Just now, as soon as he entered this room, Zhu Wuxin poured a cup of tea for Feng Shi. Chapter 4900. Her voice paused slightly as she tilted her head and laughed. Isn't it because... You want me to see the scene where Ah Xian and another lady interact alone? Zhu Wu Xian didn't say a word. The gaze which he shot towards Yiqing Luo was filled with an unknown deep meaning, as though he wanted to see her into his eyes. Silence. That represented a tacit agreement. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she wasn't angry. Unfortunately, I'll have to disappoint you. The scene which you want to see will not be staged. The young lady's tone was obviously filled with ridicule. When she tilted her head slightly, her long and narrow eyes squinted. Endless ridicule. Do you know what I want to see? In the darkness, the man's deep and chilly voice rang. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Do you need to ask me what you want to see next? I'm curious. Zhu Wu Xian suddenly walked nearer to her, as his footsteps were slightly heavy. In your heart, how do you see me? Well, he got nearer, and it was accompanied by a sky full of cold air. It made Feng Shi hide behind Yiqing Luo out of fear. Yiqing Luo hugged Feng Shi with one hand as she comforted his frightened heart while looking at him without any change in expression. You don't want to know, but I do. Zhu Wuxian got nearer as his chilly intent pounced on her. Yiqing Luo's eyes were gloomy as her long and narrow eyes were filled with a complicated glint. She pinched Feng Shi's hand lightly as she caressed it casually. She spoke calmly as her lips curled into a cold smile. Do you want to hear the truth or a lie? A lie. Zhu Wuxian replied without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo, wishful thinking. A man who didn't play his cards according to the norm was really quick-witted. She shouldn't have asked a truth or a lie. Her face was solemn as she put on a serious look. I'm a kind young lady. I only speak the truth. Following that, she shot him a cold glance as her voice was indifferent. Actually, in my heart, I feel that you are rather annoying. Zhu Wuxian's expression remained unchanged, and Yiqing Luo didn't beat around the bush as she went straight to the point. What you're thinking isn't to see a gap between Xian and me, making me misunderstand that Xian has betrayed me. All sorts of schemes. In the end, it was just for her to see it with her own eyes. The man she loved, even when he knew that she was also in the God realm. However, he was still hiding in this place with another woman. A man and a woman, alone together. As for the other woman, it was obvious that she liked him. If it was any other woman who saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. He was afraid that he would lose his mind and lose his rationality. Thus, it affected the relationship between them. Aren't you angry? Zhu Wuxian neither admitted nor denied it. Instead, he asked another question. Yiqing Luo replied calmly, I'm angry. She raised her eyebrows. Of course I'm angry, but I'm not angry because he betrayed me, because I know that in this world, no one will love me more than Xian. Zhu Wuxian's brows furrowed tightly. His thin lips moved as if he wanted to refute. But in the end, he stopped himself from saying anything. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as her smile was tainted with some gentleness. I believe that Xian will not betray me. Huh, Zhu Wuxian sneered in a low voice. The coldness in his eyes intensified. He stood in front of the young lady as he looked down at her from high position. In the darkness, the outline of his grave and stern face was faintly discernible. That pair of serene eyes suddenly revealed an icy glint. I indeed know that he's here. Zhu Wuxian's voice sounded abnormally deep. Chapter 4901. I indeed want you to see with your own eyes how the person you love is surrounded by other women when you're not around. As for him, he would rather be with another woman than come and see you. Even when you were forcefully betrothed to that Feng Chongqing by the acting god emperor, he didn't appear. Zhu Wuxian's words entered her ears clearly. Like a huge bell, it struck Yiqing Luo's ears. His thin lips curled into a sneer. If he really cared about you and valued you, he wouldn't have let you face that kind of situation alone. He should stand out and admit that he is the one you want to marry. Zhu Wuxian snorted, but he didn't. The one who stood out is me. The one who is willing to take responsibility for you is also me. He doesn't have the intention to spend the rest of his life with you, and he had never thought of appearing in front of your loved ones. Yiqing Luo, wake up. He doesn't love you at all. The more Zhu Wuxian spoke, the heavier his tone became. It almost pressured the air in the entire room, making one unable to breathe. Feng Shi's little hand clutched Yiqing Luo tightly, as her little body trembled slightly. Yiqing Luo frowned as she kept her in her arms, standing up slightly, blocking the man's icy cold aura. Young Master Zhu, are you mistaken about something? The young lady's voice was filled with extreme coldness. What right do you have to judge my relationship with Xian? Whether he doesn't care about me or not, whether he values me or not, I have my own judgment. As for you, so what if you stood out at that time? To me, your standing out made me feel very troublesome. Whether Xian wants to spend the rest of his life with me, that's a matter between Xian and I. Since I trust him, I will trust everything about him. And whether he loves me or not, it has nothing to do with you. The young lady's words were extremely indifferent, as though it was wrapped in ice. There wasn't any fluctuation of emotions, like thousands of silver needles, piercing into Zhu Wuxian's heart. In his mind, every single word of the young lady's harsh words reverberated. I only like you, that's all. Why? Zhu Wuxian's gaze was heavy as he looked at the young girl's face. Bit by bit, he shifted his gaze to the way she was holding Feng Shi in her arms, looking absolutely protective. The sorrow in his eyes deepened. Even the words that came out of his mouth sounded very hoarse. Why are you so cruel to me? Yi Qing Luo didn't avoid his line of sight. She looked into his deep, cold eyes. He enunciated each word clearly and resolutely. I don't like you, so whatever you do, it's wrong. His words caused the entire room to fall into a deathly silence. After a long while, Zhu Wuxin laughed softly. His laughter was filled with bitterness and cold ridicule. Because you love emotion. So no matter what he does, it's right. Right? Yes. Yi Qing Luo replied decisively. Zhu Wuxian let out another cold laugh. His chest was concussed. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand and locked Yi Qing Luo's wrist. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased as she struggled to break free. His strength was extremely great. When Feng Shi saw this, she immediately hugged Zhu Wuxian's hand, wanting him to let go of Yi Qing Luo, let go of Fairy's sister. But Zhu Wuxian directly stretched out his hand and held Feng Shi in his arms as his body leaned forward tightly, forcing Yi Qing Luo to take 2 steps back. Her legs bent and touched the foot of the bed behind her. Chapter 4902. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased slightly. What do you want to do? Zhu Wuxian locked her wrist with one hand. In the darkness, that faintly discernible grave and stern face was filled with endless coldness. The pair of eyes which blended in with the night, like a whirlpool, as though it was going to suck in everything around it. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. She had a bad premonition in her heart. Zhu Wuxian's thin lips curled up. A deep and malicious voice rang beside the young lady's ear. You trust him so much, but will he believe you? Yi Qing Luo realized what Zhu Wuxian wanted to do. Her expression suddenly sunk. Zhu Wuxian. Yi Qing Luo bit his name heavily as her eyes seemed to be plated with a layer of frost. The young lady was furious. Her wrist, which was locked tightly by Zhu Wuxian, suddenly turned in a strange position. She withdrew her hand from Zhu Wuxian's grip. Immediately after, Yi Qing Luo stretched out her arm towards Zhu Wuxian, trying to snatch Feng Shi away from his arms. But the moment she stretched out her hand, it was as though the man had seen through her actions. Yi Qing Luo had just stretched out her hand, but it was intercepted by Zhu Wuxian halfway. Her fair hand was once again held by the man's broad palm. But this scene seemed as though Yi Qing Luo had taken the initiative to send herself into the man's hand. And right at this moment, a bam sound was heard. The tightly shut room door was suddenly pushed open. The ground suddenly began to shake. Even the things in the room started to sway. From outside the open door, it faintly projected the glow of the luminous pearl. In the room, the 2 people whose murderous intent was soaring were stunned for a moment by this sudden change. In the air, there was a ripple of an icy mountain's aura, as though it could freeze the surroundings into frost. The gloomy atmosphere was oppressive. The air was filled with a faint, chilly sandalwood fragrance. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly contracted. Xian. Hearing the young lady's soft cry, the whirlpools at the bottom of Zhu Wuxian's eyes surged more and more like surging waves. He was like a beast that had been trapped for a long time and was about to be freed. At this moment, the cold smile on his thin lips was filled with evil and malice. He grabbed the girl's wrist and bent down to, "Come closer, girl." Zhu Wuxian. The refreshing fragrance of plums assaulted his nostrils. Yi Qing Luo recovered from the earlier shock. She pushed Zhu Wuxin's hand away with her other hand, her fingertips moving slightly. A fiery red fan appeared between her slender, white fingers. A sharp blade came out from the handle of the fan and pierced into the man's chest. The fresh blood was not conspicuous among the red clothes. Zhu Wuxin snorted. He lowered his eyes and looked at his chest. The sharp blade stung his eyes. He chuckled softly, and the emotions in his eyes surged even more intensely. It was tight and firm, completely ignoring the sharp blade in his chest. He wrapped an arm around the girl's shoulder. He moved closer to the girl. The sharp blade pierced deeper into his chest. But he didn't care. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyelashes trembled slightly. Very quickly, her eyes were left with a piece of ice which was like a 1,000-year-old snow mountain, cold to the bone. The moment the man's arm wrapped around her, with a backhand, she locked on his arm. It was tight, and her body was pushed out of his arm's range. She had just moved. A hand was placed on her waist. The force was extremely strong. The overbearing aura invaded her senses. Bam! A heavy object landed on the ground, reverberating through the house. Chapter 4903. That red robe fell heavily onto the ground. For a long time, she didn't get up, but no one was paying attention to that side. When the strength around his waist and the scent of sandalwood lingered around his body, he felt a chill run down his spine. In Yiqing Luo's eyes, all that was left was the face that was so close to her, like a god, noble and elegant. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo called out softly. The man's eyes were as deep as ink, reflecting the young girl's charming and beautiful face. The moment their eyes met, it was as though there were only the two of them left in the world. Until, Overlord, you. A lady's gentle voice was heard from the side, breaking the tenderness in the room. Yiqing Luo looked sideways toward the open door. She saw a lady dressed in white walking over. The chilly wind blew over. The lady's skirt was rolled up like a blooming white lotus, pure and noble. It was that woman called Qingge. The scene was a little unbelievable. Nestled in Dmo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo was still in the mood to imagine a drama in her mind. Was this considered? Husband and cheating partner caught on the spot. Her and Chu Wu Xian, this cheating partner. It seemed their relationship was a little complicated. Above her head, Dmo Xian's hoarse voice floated down. What are you thinking about? He didn't even look at Qingge from the corner of his eyes. His gaze was focused on Yiqing Luo, and he could clearly see the various weird expressions on the young lady's face. Just a glance. He knew that his young lady was daydreaming again. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she was caught red-handed as her cheeks flushed red and coughed violently. Nothing. Dmo Xian scoffed lightly as his slender fingers pinched her face. Don't let your imagination run wild. Then have you ever let your imagination run wild? Yiqing Luo's narrow eyes curved as her eyes were filled with craftiness and ridicule. There was no ill feeling between the two of them. It made the man in red who was lying on the ground stand up shakily. Blood was gushing out from his chest. The corners of her lips were also bright red, but he was still smiling. The curve of his thin lips was clear and cold. That smile was startling to see. The scene in front of him was so warm that it could not contain anyone. It was as if it was mocking him, everything he had done. It was all just a joke. He couldn't interfere at all. Obviously, he already knew about this matter. But his heart would still hurt. Zhu Wuxin lowered his gaze and stared at the spot on his chest where blood was seeping out. The feeling of the blade stabbing into his chest still lingered in his body. But the pain here, it was not even half a beat away from the heart. Perhaps it was because his gaze was too deep. The man who was looking at the girl with deep affection suddenly raised his head. He glanced at Zhu Wu Xen indifferently, carelessly, disdainfully, and respectfully. His beautiful thin lips curled into a mocking smile. Then, his hand slid down the girl's face and held her wrist. His fingers with distinct joints moved slightly. The The blood-stained feather fan in the girl's hand fell into the man's hand. "It's dirty. Let me clean it for you." The man's voice wasn't very soft. In the quiet and spacious room, it was extremely clear to the ears. It could even echo. It was like he intentionally said it for someone to hear. That glower flame fan, which was stained with Zhu Wu Xian's blood, was kept by Immerse. Zhu Wu Xian. Yiqing Luo seemed to be recalling. That Zhu Wu Xian whom she had stabbed, and was suddenly hit by Immerse's palm. Chapter 4904. Her expression was somewhat complicated. Her long and narrow cat eyes slightly turned sideways, as it congealed towards Zhu Wu Xian's direction. Looking at Zhu Wu Xian, who lowered his head and stared at her chest, his thin lips curled upwards, as though he was smiling, yet not smiling. Yiqing Luo pursed her lower lips slightly. Before she could open her mouth, the strength around her waist suddenly tightened. The man's deep and hoarse voice floated down from above. "So Pavilion Lord has the hobby of snatching someone else's wife." That voice sounded very calm, but Yiqing Luo could still hear the deep chilliness in it. Like a sharp blade, it pierced towards Zhu Wu Xian's body. Zhu Wu Xian raised his eyes slightly, as his icy cold eyes met Immerse's gaze. That smile, which didn't look like a smile, was still hanging by the side of his lips. As though he was provoking Immerse, he spoke indifferently. "Snatch someone else's wife? She doesn't seem to be your wife." He laughed coldly. "You're not engaged, so why can't I be pleased with her?" Immerse's gaze was like a gathering cold wind as it swirled up a whirlwind. Just as Yiqing Luo felt the chill, as she raised her eyes to look at Immerse, the man's emotions had already returned to normal. He didn't look angry, and even curled his lips. His rosy red, thin lips. The curve was noble, with some undetectable complacency. "I'm afraid Pavilion Lord has forgotten. Little Luo can only accept that the person standing beside her is me." The man's tone sounded very casual, but it made Zhu Wu Xian smile, which was filled with provocation and sarcasm, freeze on his face. Immerse was very satisfied that his own words had caused a huge reaction to Zhu Wu Xian. The smile on his lips deepened. The casual expression on his brows also seeped out a few hints of provocation. "Of course I don't mind. There are people who are pleased with little Luo, because this means that this lord's foresight is indeed very good. This lord's little Luo is very popular." Every word, every sentence was showing his sovereignty. Zhu Wu Xian's expression was getting uglier and uglier. But at this moment, Immerse gave a cold and sarcastic smile. "But Pavilion Lord's heart makes my little Luo very troubled." Pavilion Head's heart is troubling my little Luo. Pavilion Head's heart is troubling my little Luo. This sentence kept lingering in his mind. It was as if the replay button had been pressed. Zhu Wu Xian's dark eyes were like raging waves. His hands that were hanging by his side slowly clenched into fists. His fingertips turned white. Her cold face exuded an eerie coldness. His fondness, just to make Yiqing Luo so annoyed, especially when these words were said by Immerse. Zhu Wuxin snorted lightly. Her cold face was filled with pain. He looked straight at Yiqing Luo as he asked word by word, "Do you also feel the same way?" The man's body was obviously a little unstable. Blood could be faintly seen seeping out of his fingertips that were covering his chest. Her red clothes were a little messy. From the looks of it, he was in an exceptionally sorry state. His gaze was abnormally scorching, as though it was going to burn her. Yiqing Luo met his gaze as her brows creased slightly towards this question of his. To tell the truth, if she wanted to answer, it would be a little complicated. She deliberated over her words in her mind. Perhaps it was because she took too long to think. That arm which was placed across her waist suddenly increased its strength. It was slightly tight around her waist. Chapter 4905. As though he was warning her. Answer properly. Death question. Death stare. Yi Qing Luo. So how should she answer in order to satisfy this master? Was Dmo Xian called, smiling on the outside, but cursing in his heart? On the surface, he looked extremely confident and complacent, totally unconcerned about Zhu Wu Xian's thoughts towards her. In reality, in her heart, she hated Zhu Wu Xian's thoughts towards her deeply. Yi Qing Luo secretly raised her hand and pinched his arm. Don't believe me? This kind of warning action must be condemned. Dmo Xian's inky eyes congealed deeply on the young lady's face. Of course I believe you, I know. The person Lil Luo loves the most is me. You know, and you still strangle me? Yi Qing Luo pinched his arm again. Strangling me means that you don't believe me. Dmo Xian's brows were filled with a smile. So you admit that the person you love the most is indeed me? No. Yi Qing Luo replied decisively. The person I love the most is myself. The person I love the most is you. That's enough. Dmo Xian lowered his head slightly, as his chin rested on the young lady's shoulder. Yi Qing Luo's little hand pinched the back of his hand from time to time. The man's joints were clearly defined. His fair, jade-like fingers felt extremely good to touch. She let out a light snort. The man suddenly held her little hand, as his deep magnetic voice was mellow like fine wine. I'm because I care about you, so I'm not confident in myself. My fault. Don't be angry. The last at the end of the tone was raised, low, and lazy. Like a little hook, it tugged at Yi Qing Luo's heartstrings bit by bit. Bam! In front, a sound of a heavy object colliding was heard. It dispersed the warmth in the room. Yi Qing Luo's vision had just turned over. She saw the figure who had knocked against the door, but was still swaying as he turned around to leave. That figure gave off a lonely and bitter feeling, as if he was fleeing for his life. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips moved as she wanted to call out to Zhu Wu Xian. But the words that were about to come out, she swallowed it back. What was the use of calling him? For people like Zhu Wu Xian, to a person who was so paranoid that he was speechless, since he couldn't give any response, or use indifference to reject. She could see that too. Those actions and words that Dmo Xian had said earlier were all completely different. It was all to make Zhu Wu Xian give up. However, looking at Zhu Wu Xian's swaying figure, which looked like it would fall at any moment even when he walked, and the blood dripping on the ground, Yi Qing Luo's pink lips pursed even tighter. More or less, he couldn't bear to do it. Before he could speak, beside his ears, the man's faint voice floated down. Xiao Jiao, follow him, don't let him die. A ball of white light suddenly shot toward Zhu Wuxi. The strong wind caused the tottering figure to lose its balance and fall to the ground. The huge nine-tailed fox swept its tail and hooked the man who was about to come into intimate contact with the ground. Then, in the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the underground palace of the Dark Palace. Ah Xian! Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand and hooked his neck, rubbing her head against his face. Thank you. Because of Zhu Wu Xian, you're thanking me? The man's obsidian eyes sunk slightly as his tones sunk. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as her pink lips held a bright smile. I want to thank you for loving me so much. She tiptoed and hooked the man's neck. Chapter 4906. She knew. The reason why Dmo Xian asked Lil Nine to take care of Zhu Wu Xian. To her, Zhu Wu Xian's obsession and stubbornness made her troubled, and she could only face it coldly. But toward Zhu Wu Xian, she didn't hate him. After all, every love deserved to be respected, even if she didn't like Zhu Wu Xian. But not because of Zhu Wu Xian's feelings for her, and disregarding all the things that Zhu Wu Xian had done for her. After all, he had saved her several times. If she were to watch him leave with an injury and not care about anything, wasn't that too cold? In her heart, Zhu Wu Xian was actually considered as a friend, if he didn't have that obsession toward her. Perhaps they were already friends. But even if she was worried about him, she couldn't let her own battle pet take care of Zhu Wu Xian and send him out of the Palace of Darkness base. If she made a move, she would definitely give Zhu Wu Xian hope. Then all the coldness that she had done previously would be wasted. DMO Xian apparently thought of this point. This man, he had always put his life on the line to think for her. Overlord, she... Who is she? A sharp voice broke the warmth between the both of them. Dressed in a fluttering white robe, the woman with a delicate and elegant face strode towards them. Yiqing Luo's heels landed on the ground as she glanced sideways at Qinggu, who looked as though she was trying to kill her way over as her pink lips curled upwards. Zhu Wu Xian had left. Now another Qinggu had come. She and her Xian hadn't met each other for a long time. She didn't even have the chance to be alone with him. Furthermore, her Xian was hers. This lady, on what basis did she have to question her identity in this manner? Just as Qinggu walked over, Yiqing Luo had already stretched out her hand and pulled DMO Xian behind her. Her petite and slender figure stood in front of DMO Xian and also blocked Qingji's path. Her pink lips rose slightly as she tilted her head slightly and looked at her with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. Miss Qinggu has been looking for so long. Don't you know my identity? That smile was enchanting, like a dazzling mandala blossoming. Her long and narrow eyes curved into a smile. Qingji's eyes widened as she said in a dull tone, I'm sorry, the martial monarch never mentioned to me that there's another woman beside him. As she spoke, her cherry lips curled up into an elegant and distant smile. It sounded as though he was explaining the reason why he didn't know Yiqing Luo. But every word and sentence was hinting at, if the man didn't mention his other half, it meant that the man didn't care about her at all and didn't acknowledge her identity at all. The last few words were another woman, as though hinting at Yiqing Luo. Even if she really had an intimate relationship with DMO Xian, she was just one of them. Yiqing Luo naturally understood the deep meaning behind the pigeon's words. Instead of getting angry, she smiled. Her eyes curved and she smiled. Xian, you don't have to mention my identity to unimportant people. She lifted her eyes and looked at the man's handsome face. When she met the man's ink-like eyes, the dimples in her eyes bloomed. Following that, she stretched out her hand and circled around the man's neck. She buried herself into the man's broad embrace. Her face was plastered on the man's chest. Her vision was directed towards Qinggu. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. Miss Qinggu, am I right? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.